There we go. We are live. Send Scott pizza. That's his
That's
message.
right. Send me pizza. I need pizza. I'm hungry.
Pizza. Do you have a favorite type of pizza?
Sort of. A little variety is good, but I mean, generally, I tend to get. There's a local place. They have what's called an omnivore,
Mm-hmm.
which is pepperoni, mushroom, onion, beef. I think ground beef. What else do they have on there?
Lots of stuff.
Yeah, but I usually always get it with extra sauce.
Ah.
To me, the abomination of a pizza is the one that either has no sauce or white sauce on it instead. And I'm like,
I like a white pizza, though it doesn't have actual sauce on a white pizza. It's just got regatta cheese, I think.
I like as much red sauce as you can put on the thing until it falls apart. So.
Okay.
I'd also like to try a deep dish pizza, but the closest place to us that makes it is about an hour and a half drive. And I don't want to drive an hour and a half just to get pizza.
No, thank you.
You can mail order it, but it's expensive.
Good evening, Movie World Comics.
Hello.
Paolo should be along in about 15 minutes, too.
I hope he's bringing pizza.
Hope he's bringing pizza, yeah.
Pizza on the brain.
And of course, the big news this week is George Perez's imminent death. Did you read his statement he put out?
Yeah, I read.
He said something like,
"To be in his position, he was rather upbeat."
You know? Yeah, I know. And I like the line. He was like 3 years ago when he announced his retirement. He joked, "The only thing missing is a funeral." He's like, "Oh boy." Here we go.
Yeah, I knew he had problems with his eyesight in recent years too.
Yeah. That's why he had to retire, was because of his eyesight.
Right.
He's had problems with it before. So I've pulled out a bunch of George Perez stuff from my George Perez section. I'm trying to remember what this is. I think this is a reprint. The Black Widow.
Marvel's Black Widow?
Yeah. Marvel's Black Widow. Was this his...
Where
are my glasses? They're back here. I think was this his Marvel Fanfare was his big... oh, yeah. That's what this is.
So that was published in Marvel Fanfare?
Yeah, this was published in Marvel Fanfare back in the mid '80s, I think. This was like the most famous Black Widow story for like 20 years because there were no others. Let's see, does that have a year in here? Oh, this came out in '99. This is old. 83 and 84 is when it was published in Marvel Fanfare.
So that would have been 4 hours reading Marvel Fanfare.
So it's it's good stuff. Let's see who wrote it. Where is on an introduction? Oh, Ralph Macchio. Brett Breeding is inking him on this.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
I know, me too. Yeah, The Widow alone. So this whole thing is from Marvel Fanfare. I think it was 2 issues. And there's an introduction by Ralph Macchio.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. I can't believe this comic is, this reprint is 22 years old, let alone the original George Perez stuff.
Makes you feel double old, doesn't
it? Yeah. Wow. I would have thought this was from like the 2010s or something. But I think they've reprinted this a few times. It may even be in hardcover these days.
I don't think they ever did compilation volumes for Marvel Fanfare, did they?
What was that?
I don't think they ever did like compilation volumes for Marvel Fanfare, did they?
I don't think so, but I think they reprinted some of the individual stuff that was in Marvel Fanfare. Nope, I'm not alone. Scott rallied.
Yeah.
After getting a little rest. It's feeling better.
And now I want pizza. So,
and it's interesting. That's a Yancey Labatt cover. Yancey, you wouldn't know his name
for some reason.
Yancey Labatt and Mark Oh My Morales. Yancey was a Romita Raider in the mid '90s.
Okay.
I've known him for years and years, and recently he's been drawing. What is the name of that book? It's DC's book for young girls, like the digest size. They're like the Super Women, or I cannot remember the name of it.
I wouldn't know what the title of it is.
I cannot. I've seen it lots of times, but he's been drawing quite a few of those over the last 5 years or so.
Cool. Movie World says there's at least one trade pack or one trade of Marvel Fanfare.
Yeah. Wonder which part of Marvel Fanfare.
I know when Marvel did the Warriors 3 stuff that Charles Vest did.
Right. That I know is in a hardcover, I think.
That came from Marvel Fanfare, but also he didn't get royalties for that, and he wasn't very happy about it either.
Yeah, that'd make me unhappy.
Yeah.
That would.
I think Jim Steranko still refuses to sign some of the reprint Shield stuff for that reason.
Oh, that was the I never heard this from him, but I heard it back in that was the one I have it on my shelf. What happened was, I think it was the late 90s.
Okay.
This was before Marvel had much of a trade paperback presence. They really, back in those days, they thought that the trade paperbacks would eat into the monthly sales, so they didn't put a lot of stuff in trade paperback.
Right.
Matter of fact, there was one trade paperback editor at the time, Polly Watson, and she was always overwhelmed because she had to get whatever small number there was out. So, matter of fact, it was an Italian publisher, maybe been Panini, I can't remember, who wanted to reprint that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they had it all recolored, and it looks terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Trade paperback contains the first 7 issues of Fanfare. Okay, because there was a lot of issues of Fanfare.
Yeah.
And then Marvel was like, well, since it's all recolored and ready to be printed, we may as well print a version of it here in the U.S. So it's like the Italian company licensed it, did the work, and Marvel went, we may as well print it here.
Kind of like a Kickstarter, huh?
Yeah, I think that at that time I heard that Steranko refused to sign that one because the color was so terrible on it.
Gotcha.
And it is.
You're talking about Marvel didn't have many trades at that point. I wonder if Carol Kalish had lived longer, if she would have pushed trades.
I don't know.
Harder.
Don't know. No idea.
I get the feeling that she would, but I may be wrong.
Who knows? Well, being that Marvel's, individual comic sales are not as robust as they once were, maybe trades do push down the individual comic sales. I don't know. But like that was just their thinking in the 90s.
Right.
But of course, they were coming out of the boom years in the 90s, so why wouldn't you want to sell 1 million comics?
A million of the same one and 2,000 of everything else.
Huh. And let's see. This is one of my underrated George Perez things. Where is it? Have you ever read Marvel 2-in-1? Project Pegasus?
Not much. Yeah. I have a few scattered issues in a box.
This was some good. Let me see. What issues was it? I think he did half this book, and Byrne and Sinnott did the other half. Marvel 2-in-1, 42 to 43 and 53 to 58. I think he may have done like 55 to 58. This was always. I remember. I haven't read this in years, and it's George Perez and Gene Day inking them.
Wow, that's an interesting combination.
Yeah. So it's got this sort of graphic designy quality to them. It looks weird on this very white paper.
Yeah.
But I've been meaning to read this since I got it 10 years ago, or I should say reread it, because This was one of my favorites when it was coming out. I always liked these issues. I think Macchio and Grunwald wrote it together, and Sal Buscema, John Byrne, and George Perez did different parts of it. But this was some good Perez here. I remember he did some nice covers for Marvel 2-in-1 too. I wonder if they're in.
Were all the 2-in-1 books team ups with the Thing?
Yes, that was the whole concept behind it.
So I remember a lot of Thing and Spider-Man for some reason.
Well, no, Marvel Team Up was.
What I'm saying is, like, I remember team up books that had.
Yeah, they originally started the Marvel Team Up book, and it was going to be Spider-Man and the Human Torch kind of switching off. And they had like 1 or 2 issues of the Human Torch before they went all Spider-Man team ups.
Okay.
And a lot of people point to Marvel Team Up as sort of the end of the Silver Age, as the end because all of a sudden. Because Spider-Man was with every character, and a lot of people thought he didn't really work in that context.
Right.
So a lot of Silver Age guys think of that as like the end of Spider-Man being good was Marvel Team Up. And the Byrne and Sinnott stuff in it is nice too.
Oh, I've got that Thing Quasar issue in a box somewhere. I recognize the cover.
But I never hear much. There we go. And this is the Project Pegasus story, too. This is what this
Definitely
is.
do not have that. Yeah.
Project Pegasus down the bottom. Like I said, back when this originally came out, I really liked it. I probably haven't read it since the early 80s, so right. I can't tell you what I think of it now. But I bought this, like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. Do you remember these? I don't think Marvel puts these out anymore. These Marvel Premiere Edition hardcovers.
I honestly don't know. I don't keep up with them, so I'm not sure.
Let's see, what year did this come out? For a while, this is how they were putting stuff out. This came out in 2009, so it's that old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I have a couple more like this that I can, but I don't know. I don't think this program is kind of still going on. The whole idea was and they even had some that were like limited edition. Like I think this was the open edition, which there probably weren't many of. Then they had like some that were numbered from like 1 to 500.
Gotcha.
But like I said, I don't think. But they were putting a lot of. I think the Epic line also killed this line too. There's Paolo. The Epic collections. Evening, Paolo.
How's it going?
All right, we're talking some George Perez.
Yeah, we're hoping you're going to bring pizza, but no.
Yeah, Scott really wants some pizza.
Yeah.
No pizza. I had chicken leftovers.
I was just showing some underrated George Perez, which is his Project Pegasus from Marvel 2-in-1. Have you ever read this stuff?
No. Marvel 2-in-1 was not published by the Brazilian publishers, except for 3 or 4 stories, and I totally missed out on that. So I should read that. I believe that Perez drew half of it and John Byrne drew the other half.
Yep. And it's Byrne and Sinnott and Perez and Jean Day.
Interesting combination.
That's exactly what I said.
With one Sal Buscema story, I think, in the beginning. Or my favorite way that I ever heard Buscema pronounced was somebody back in high school pronounced his name Buscema.
Yeah, if he was Dutch.
Or if he was Popeye.
That was kind of like Buscema.
Buscema. I'm John Buscema, but something like that.
I've never heard anybody say Buscema. Wow, that's
only one person I ever heard say that.
Where's Tim? Let me ask him how you pronounce it.
Let me ask him how you pronounce it. But yeah, this is some underrated Perez. Wow, look at that page has got a lot of Perez and Jean Day in it.
Because of the way the Brazilians published everything, I got a lot of John Byrne in one sitting, but also got a lot of George Perez. And although they skipped his run in Fantastic Four, I was getting Avengers, I was getting his Black Widow storyline from Marvel Fanfare at the same time, which is funny because they're like 6 years apart.
I was
but
just
they were
showing
published at the same time.
First thing I showed. This is a 1999 reprint of that Black Widow storyline.
Why do that cover?
What was that?
Why do that cover?
I don't know. This is a Yancey Labatt cover who I was just talking about. I know him from my bullpen days. And he's been doing that line that DC has that's aimed at young girls. The Super Women or something like that. I can't remember the name of the line. They're like smaller. They're like that 6x9 size original graphic novel. They're at the young adult market. He's actually been doing a lot of those in the last 5 years. So I was surprised to see that this cover was by him way back in 1999.
You would think with the name Yancey, he'd be perfect for the Fantastic Four.
There you go.
Hello, Dave.
I was shocked that this reprint is that old. DC Superhero Girls. There we go. Thank you, Sleepy Reader. That's the name that's what Yancey's been drawing. So he drew this cover in 1999, and he's been drawing Superhero Girls lately. But why they don't have a George Perez cover, I don't know. Maybe in he was
doing Avengers Heroes Return.
Yeah. You got me. I don't know.
The other thing I was getting, we were getting Perez on Justice League and the New Teen Titans. They were rushing through his Justice League run, and there was a marked improvement between Dick Giordano over Perez on Justice League and Dick Giordano over Perez on New Teen Titans.
Yeah, I remember that early '80s Justice League by Perez was. Was the first time ever that I bought Justice League off the racks. That was some good stuff. I remember. I think he was doing the Avengers at the same time. Even that was crazy.
No. Wait, it still did a few stories.
Right.
He had, his original run was during the Englehart days, when Vinnie Coletta was ruining his artwork.
The second run.
Then Pablo Marcos, when Shooter was writing, it was Pablo Marcos inking, and that was the best combination I've seen with Perez.
Yeah, the second run I'm talking about from around issue 200.
Yeah, he did a few because he took over again from Byrne. Byrne had been doing Michelini stuff.
Yeah,
and then Perez did a few issues from the Red Ronin, not the Red Ronin issue, but the ones that led up to the Miss Marvel was raped and nobody noticed storyline.
That was some good stuff. So I also like I said, I think this line of hardcovers, the epic editions wiped out. I found Pablo Marcar a strange mix with Perez, scratchy. No, the strangest mix of Perez and Klaus Janson on
Klaus. I was going to say Klaus Janson is scratchy.
Logan's Run. That's what they did together. That was some interesting looking stuff.
I wouldn't call Pablo Marcos scratchy. I think it actually made Perez's work a lot rounder. It was a good fit, like not like Austin over Burden, but definitely like Joe Rubinstein over everybody.
I'm liking this Gene Day over Perez. I don't think I've looked at this in ages. Some of it's nice.
Does it look like Gene Day?
No, some panels do. It can't, like that panel right there with the silhouette looks like Gene Day.
Yeah, I can see that.
But most of it doesn't. But sometimes it shows up when he gets to do so like, that splash page is all Perez. That's one of his standard classics.
I have a very thin hardcover that's called Future Day. That's all reprints of Gene Day material from the Warren magazines. And Dave Sim did a lot of the lettering on this.
Yeah. But my first George Perez was this stuff. I still have my issues, but I bought this years ago for cheap. The Bride of Ultron. This is around 160 was my first Perez issue of Avengers. That one right there. With that famous Marvel No Prize. In the Marvel No Prize book, they have a panel from here where you get to see the Grim Reaper pulling his mask on with two hands, even though one of them, he's missing a hand because he's got that cybernetic thing. I think that's in this issue.
Oops.
But good stuff. This was some good stuff. Who was it? Jim Shooter, George Perez, Pablo Marco. This is the Pablo Marco stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's what made me buy Perez and Marcos. It was that storyline.
Right. I can't remember if I got that first or shortly afterwards I got some back issues, like with his first. What was his first Avengers, like in the 150s, like 151 or 152 or something like that?
No, he was doing it in the 140s. The first one I read of his, it was the King story in the Wild West.
Okay, yeah, because I think I got some stuff in the late 140s then, like as back issues. So I love Gene Day and Pencils and Inks. I think he was somewhat of a genius. Yeah, so sad he spent so much time. Yeah, his Gene Day's Master of Kung Fu is just one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I remember Perez standing out very early on. I mean, he caught my eye quickly as a kid. Mm-hmm. So he went 77, so I was 11, and he caught my eye. Graviton.
Did he give it back?
Nope, he did not. Hey, this is the issue I just cut up on Magic cards. Not a Perez issue. 158. Jack Kirby cover, though. Like I said, this was, and this to me is the biggest. Now, some younger people may say that the Infinity Gauntlet is the biggest disappointment of George Perez not finishing a series. But to me, it's the Korvac saga.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, if George Perez has gotten a chance to finish this, it would have been a classic. Because it was really good. Jim Shooter was writing it. George Perez was drawing it. But then, like, partway through, I don't know how many issues were left. George Perez left the Avengers. And we went from George Perez to, let's see, who's here?
Sal Buscema.
Sal Buscema. I think there was people not even as good as Sal Buscema. Let's see. That looks
not
like
Sal Buscema, right?
Buscema.
Wow.
George Perez. More George Perez. George Perez was on 170. 171. More George Perez.
Yeah, because they jump about 3 or 4 issues in the trade because it's the Count Nefarious story with burnt art.
172 starts Sal Buscema. So you go from Perez to Sal Buscema, and it was just a step. And then I think we went Sal Buscema layouts, and who's it?
Klaus Jensen.
It's Klaus. Roger Stern, editor, Letterman. D Hands is the finisher. So now you've got Sal Buscema layouts and everybody and his mother on the inks. So it was like
D Hands, Christy Bunker's cousin.
This sort of epic Korvac story just fizzled out. Oh, then we've got the next issue has Dave Wenzel and Pablo Marco.
Mm.
So you go from
That's interesting.
Yeah.
No, Dave Wenzel did a couple of superhero stories, and they were very, very boring for taking into account his usual style.
He did anything other than the Hobbit comics.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Wenzel.
But there's a difference between D Hands and M Hands. Because D Hands is whoever's available, and M Hands is whoever Al Milgrom rounds up to help him.
So like 3 or 4 issues of the story were George Perez, and then Dave Wenzel finishes up the next, the 3 or 4. And it was just I was buying this at the time, and it was such a disappointment because the Perez issues were so exciting, and they were building up this sort of epic story. And I was reading it month by month, and then it just all fell apart. I mean, there was just no drama left in it with, Dave Wenzel drawing it. I mean, he's competent, but he's not George Perez. And everybody who was a Korvac saga fan feels the same way. We're like, oh man. D hands.
Yeah.
Even comic enthusiast, many hands. You at least get the crusty. You
Yeah,
at least
but
want
that's the
crusty
thing.
mustard. Yeah.
The way they've been identifying the inkers in the Grand Comics database, I always notice that M hands is when Milgram is rounding up a bunch of people to help him. So I'm going now with the theory that M hands does not mean many hands; it means Milgram's hands.
Let me see who was the editor on that M hands book. Let me look.
M. Wolfman.
Nope, it's the one after this.
I think Archie Goodwin was already the editor.
Jim Salicrup, assistant editor. Roger Stern was the editor.
Mm. Right, because Stern started as an editor before he started writing.
I wonder if Bernie Wrightson ever called him Captain Stern.
But man, this Korvac saga actually could have been good, but it's not.
You've been a contender.
Could have been a contender. Avengers 167, 168, and 170 to 177. And Thor Annual 6.
Because Thor Annual 6 has Korvac's origin.
Right.
And
he was introduced there just kind of on a whim. Well, no, that wasn't a whim. I'm thinking of the other guy. You wouldn't think he was just this character in an annual that you didn't think would really become anything, but then he did.
Mm-hmm. But Stern wrote that annual, right?
Let's see.
I think it was. So it was probably Stern's idea that he pushed to have Korvac, or maybe he should have liked the idea.
Len Wein and Roger Stern. Roger Stern was the co-plotter and scripter.
Mm.
See, every time you say Korvac, it makes me think of Ernie Kovacs.
Side by side with a gun.
Yeah, it's scary how Paula has these numbers you can just pull out at random.
One of these days, everybody's going to want to fact check me.
It's like, baseball statistics. Like,
the Marvel method really needed the good artist even more than normal comics. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Paolo knows too much.
Don't you know it? Or maybe not enough.
Terrence, as long as you bring pizza, we don't care if you're late.
Scott really wants some pizza, so bring him.
I'm craving some pizza. Just as soon as we get done here, I'm going to get.
Oh, that's right. Korvac was originally in a chair-like thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I think I remember reading that annual first and then being surprised he came back.
Did he get his chair from the same place that MODOK got his apparatus?
He eventually didn't have that chair.
Now we got superpowers.
Right. Is that a burn cut? Perez and Austin, pardon me. That's what I thought it was. I always liked this cover.
Mm-hmm.
That was always a good one. Perez stuff. And here, this is interesting. One of my recent favorites, well, not that recent anymore. I just only read it within the last so many years, is Jla Avengers, which, where did I see it? On Twitter. I think it was Tom Brevoort saying, how much he liked this, because I think Tom Brevoort was the editor on it. And he was like, he thought at the end, it kind of got to be a mess. I was like, I don't think there's any way around. I don't hold this being a mess against it.
No. Although, my dealer used to say that that book came out too late. It should have come out 2 years before.
Right.
Because by then the artistic momentum of that era had passed. Because the Avengers was when the Reconstructionist era was about to end, when they did Heroes Return, and so doing a little bit of nostalgia kind of function to get some of the older readers back after the debacle that there was in Heroes Reborn.
I think this came out. When did this come? This came out quite a few years after that, right? 2003, 2004.
Exactly. And by that time, we were in a new artistic movement, which came on the heels of the Authority.
Right. But man, the art in this is beautiful. It did sell well, too. I had this discussion
of course. Everybody wanted it.
And like I said, I don't think there's any way for like the story. George Perez just did such a bang-up job on it. But the story itself, I don't think can be anything but a mess. Because how do you write a story that brings the Avengers and JLA together in a way that's not going to end up? I just think that it's such a forced pairing.
I was never a fan of company-wide crossovers anyways, but I was even less of a fan of company-wide crossovers that had large teams of superheroes.
Well, this isn't a company-wide crossover. It's just a crossover. But I know what you mean.
Intercompany crossover.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is only 4 issues. It didn't
The problem is that you had to have all 35 or 40 Avengers and all 35 or 40 Leaguers, so
it's gonna be a mess. That's why I don't hold its crazy plot being a mess against it. Mm-hmm. That's how it's gotta be. Kind of thing. So I actually like this a whole lot. I really like. I mean, I read it. I had this for like a decade before I finally read it, and I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought. And I really like now to look at these like they were Sunday comics, because the layouts and everything are and the drawing and the color is so beautiful that I can just go and look at pages of it.
I like the black gutters there.
Yeah, that's why I really wish I had gotten that oversized hardcover that's really expensive now. Because it's just beautiful.
How many times a week do I say, I really wish I would have got that oversized hardcover day when I could have?
Because man, it's like his layouts in this are just, he worked on them a whole lot. You can just tell.
Yeah. But the plot itself, I mean, you noticed right off the bat, okay, they're doing Avengers Defenders War in these pages, and now they're doing Contest of Champions, and now they're doing all the Crisis. And there's even a little bit of Busiek poking fun at Marvel versus DC.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. It's kind of very self-aware that this is a
comic book about comics.
Yes, a comic book about comics. It's fan service comic.
I have to give Busiek credit. He's one of the few writers that actually makes me care about superheroes anymore.
Yeah.
Astro City.
Mm-hmm.
It's because he does it so well.
Yeah.
And I think he did a bang-up job with
the Conan stuff, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I wouldn't criticize this for being a mess at all. I mean, maybe Tom Brevoort thinks that. But I'm like, I think it's a beautiful mess if it's a mess, because there's no other way it could be. Look at that. That's insane.
Jared, can you make your screen dominant so Terrence can see the book better?
Sure. Okay. Look at that. Every page.
What, like 40 characters in one panel there?
Yeah. And it's just page after page like that.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. The amount of design and drawing that went into this is crazy. And like you have to.
I just thought of something.
Yeah. Look at that. I mean, that's nuts.
George Perez is almost like a Lynn Claire version of Jeff Darrow.
Yeah. It's
all these crazy crowd scenes, but he's got very clean lines. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you can find.
Yeah, Perez is the type of guy that lets the inker do the blacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he indicates most of his blacks, but man, it's like I said, if this is a mess, it's certainly a beautiful mess.
Definitely.
I like it a lot. I don't love that color over Perez. I guess it's just felt normal at that time. Yeah, the color is extremely bright, and this color is superhero color. It's lots of. Think of all the primary color. Wow is right. It's really. If you can get your hands on this, get it, because it's like I said. It's just a beautiful thing. Like I had it sitting around for 10 years, and I didn't bother to read it. When I finally did, I was blown away. I was like, wow.
About 15 feet over there, I've got stacks of books on a table that I got at Heroes Con probably 10, 12 years ago that I haven't even looked at yet.
Yeah.
Prevent me from going and getting more? No.
It happens.
Yes, it does.
Let's see. This is my current George Perez style. At least current as of the last 10 years. Like I would get things like Crimson Plague.
I remember.
I got that.
I remember that.
I think this is this is the Event Comics one, issue number 1 in a 6-issue series. I think this is the only issue.
Was Peter David writing that one?
No, that was Sex and Violence.
Okay.
Yeah, he's right. Perez is writing this on his own.
Yeah, Perez reprinted that in an issue number when they tried to do Guerrilla Comics.
And this,
Perez did the issue number 0, reprints the Event Comics issue with extra pages, and then there's number 1, and then they pulled the plug on Guerrilla Comics for lack of funding.
there's 1, and there's 2. So there's 2 more issues of Crimson Plague.
Yeah, that's the last one that came out.
Yeah.
I have all of those from the Guerrilla Comics line.
And then this was some really good stuff.
Have enough guerrilla marketing.
What year did this come out? 07. Wow, that was a long time ago. His run on Brave and the Bold from 07.
Yeah, I got a trade paperback of that.
I don't remember that at all.
Looks like I have 2 covers for.
Did Perez ever do Green Lantern Corps? I don't think he did.
I don't know.
No.
I didn't think so. Okay.
There's a beautiful cover on number 2. Hold on. Green Lantern. Oh, I have 2 of them in here. Green Lantern and Supergirl. This is some beautiful. This is when Bob Wyacek was inking them, so it looks super nice.
Super.
Issue 7. Issue 7. Issue 3. Issue 4. 07. The Supergirl and Lobo. What they were trying to do was, it was like Batman and Green Lantern and Supergirl, Supergirl and Lobo. So they were kind of keeping the next one, Brave and the Bold, number 5, Legion, number 7, Power Girl. I think I have all the Bob Wyacek inked issues because I was scanning these in for him at the time. And then the last thing I got by Perez, I think this is it, was George Perez's Sirens. Anyone get this? This is another thing he was writing.
I don't even remember that one.
It came out Boom Studios, so it was fairly recent.
That's probably why. I never really kept up with Boom's output much.
It came out, and the writing wasn't all that good. 2014. Legolas, Gimli, Samwise, how you doing?
Now we got to figure out which of us is which.
What's the average print run these days on a Marvel or DC title? I don't know what the average. I would think the average is up around 50 or 60,000. Like
for a top 10 book.
A good selling comic, like a hit, breaks 100,000.
If there are 5 incentive covers, yes.
Yeah. Well, if there's 15 incentive covers, it breaks 200,000. If it's Star Wars, it breaks 500,000, and they all end up in the dollar boxes.
If it's a regular comic, it's between 20 and 40.
I don't quite think it's that low. I think it's still a little higher than that, but a lot of them are low. A lot of them are that low.
I think Marvel puts out about 10 to 15 comics, which don't even get to 10,000 by issue number 5.
It's crazy.
I don't know.
It's sad when you look at the numbers.
I would assume Terrence knows this. There's a guy named John Jackson Miller who runs the site Chromicron.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
but when Marvel and DC pulled out of Diamond, that thing is useless now.
Yeah.
Because
historically they kept data on circulation figures back.
But no, and it's not it's not John Jackson Miller's fault. It's just the new distributors, they don't give you those numbers.
Yeah, he doesn't have access to those numbers. So.
And who knows what digital is? I don't think they've ever released accurate figures on those numbers.
Yeah, and with digital, I think they're probably ashamed of it. Otherwise, they'd go shouting to everybody,
Yes,
1 million downloads.
Yeah. I assume that too.
Total, not each.
If the number was big, they'd be bragging about it, you know?
Yeah.
Jared would be Legolas because of the long hair. Scott would be Gimli because of the beard.
Oh, no way.
Would be Samwise.
Maybe I have Gimli. How tall are you, Jared?
5'11".
Okay, I'm taller than Jared, and I have long hair too. So would that make me Legolas?
I think Marvel puts 70 to 90 comics a month, and they can't all find a real audience. Yeah, and also with when your comics are $5 a pop, selling 40,000 of them is like selling 200,000 comics at $1 a pop.
Yeah, so and you're not paying inkers.
Yeah, right. You're not paying inkers. So it's like they're Scott is Gandalf.
You shall not pass.
I'm Treebeard. I'm not doing anything until I have to.
That ain't funny.
I'm Tom Bombadil. I'm just walking off whistling.
You can do anything, any damn thing in the world you want. Tom Bombadil is by far the most powerful character in the whole Lord of the Rings.
That's what they said. That's what they said in the book.
In general,
yeah.
He's an anomaly like nobody else.
Right.
So he's Ambush Bug.
He's a lot more powerful than Ambush Bug ever.
I think they said, if I remember it, they actually said in the novel he'd probably be the last one to fall, but he would fall if Sauron took over the world.
Hello, Graphic Man.
Good evening.
There's Graphic Man. I was showing off foreign covers on Graphic Man's show on Wednesday.
I'm ready for the second breakfast full of pizza. I can tell you that. Oh, now we're back to Wenzel again with his Hobbit comics.
Much better than his Avengers comics.
Yeah. I've never seen any of his superhero stuff.
Well, if you had been reading the Avengers at the time, you'd be very different.
Matter of fact, the only other thing I can think of that he's done besides the Hobbit books was he did an alien story where aliens landed in or had a presence in Viking times.
Well, those Hobbit books are way more worth seeking out than the Korvac books.
Probably a lot more of them in print too.
But it's kind of like he had to follow George Perez on the story too. So that was Sal Buscema couldn't even really follow him, and he's a talented guy.
Yeah, there are certain artists I just would not want to follow. Period.
Yeah, especially in the middle of a big sprawling epic story, you don't want to follow George Perez.
All right.
That's kind of crazy.
I mean, can you imagine who did Swamp Thing after Bernie Wrightson left?
Oh, actually Nestor Redondo.
Okay.
He did. That was him, right?
Can you imagine trying to live up to the?
He actually did a nice job. If you ever see those ones after him that he did, I think it was Redondo, right?
I'm just saying in comparisons like that.
Oh yeah.
Follow.
But if anybody could follow Wrightson, it could be someone like one of those Filipino guys like Redondo, because they're used to that sort of thing. I mean, I don't think he quite had the magic of the Wrightson stuff, but it was only a small step down. I mean, it wasn't a huge step.
Not like Frank Robbins taking over the shadow from Mike Kaluta.
Yeah.
That was a big step down.
I mean, I like Frank Robbins stuff, but he's not Mike Kaluta.
No.
Huh. Yeah, reminds me of John Buscema following Neil Adams on the Kree Skrull War. Even though he's a great artist, it flattened out the whole story. Exactly. Same thing. Same exact thing. Who was that? I can't even remember who the guy was who did the fifth and last issue of the Mike Zeck Punisher miniseries?
Bill Reynolds?
I don't even remember, but it was like, you know what? You couldn't wait for that was all because they wanted to get it out on time. And Mike Zeck could. It's like nowadays, I don't think they'd ever do that. Yeah, Redondo was great, but not as horrific as Wrightson. There you go. There's a good explanation.
Yeah, I mean, he was just different.
Yeah. But his drawing is top shelf. So
right. I would just use that as an example. Like, there are just certain artists you just don't want to follow.
Oh yeah, Neil Adams, you didn't want to follow. And I'm sure John Buscema didn't care, but he would. Let's see. One of the comics I got this week, I didn't realize was a prequel. This series, Bloom, the fourth and final issue. This is one I just. If it wasn't for Comic Shop Weekly showing off the cover of the first issue, I wouldn't even known it existed. But my comic shop actually had a shelf copy in anyway by Hero Tomorrow Comics, I think publishes it. And it's by Ted Sakura, right? Ted Sakura and Butch Mappa is the artist. And I didn't realize that it was a prequel to, he's got this whole line of comics. Apma, the Undiscovered Animal. And I guess this character, I don't even think her name is Bloom.
How can it be undiscovered if it's published in a book?
What was that?
How can it be undiscovered if it's published in a book?
It looks like there's Apma and the Tap Dance Killer are the two. And I think Apma, it said, was a character in the other one, and this is her origin story. I didn't even realize that as I read it. I had no idea but it was a good with some nice art. This is the one that was about took place in the early 70s and was a comic book guy who worked as a mechanic during the day and was working on his comic book career at night. Mm-hmm. And he found this woman dancer who he wanted to use as inspiration for his villain. So he eventually goes out to the woods to draw some pictures of her, and things just get crazy.
Oh, yeah, I remember that synopsis.
Yeah, I mentioned this one. And it's just got nice artwork, nice storytelling. It was a good story. I enjoyed these 4 issues, I have to say.
Heaven forbid you get a comic that's got good storytelling and good art these days.
And I didn't realize, I think the guy who did the first cover, his name is Bong Dazo, Bongdazo, and I guess he died in 2018 because they've got 1965 to 2018. I'm like, whoa. They must have had this cover done a while ago, and he died during it.
That name sounds like a minor character in a Cheech and Chong movie.
Yeah, Bong Dazo, Bong Days. Oh, a DC supervillain too.
That too.
Movie World Comics likes the last issue of Buscema's art style. Well, you're one of the few. Most people I know complain about Neil Adams leaving the Kree-Skrull War.
I guess it was a bit jarring.
Yeah.
If Buscema had done the art in every issue, nobody would complain.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Even if he had Sal doing a couple of fill-ins.
Mm-hmm. The thing was, at that time period, Neil Adams was so new, different, and exciting.
Yeah.
What year would it have been?
Oh, what was it? Late 60s, early 70s?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Late 69.
Right. A little bit earlier than 69? I thought. Okay. Gotcha.
I mean, who was more exciting than Neil Adams at that time? I don't know that there was anyone.
Steranko, he would have said me.
Steranko, maybe, but Steranko didn't do a whole lot.
No, his body of work's pretty small.
I can respect that model. I'm a big fan of Buscema on the Avengers, but I was reading them as a kid, and the change really threw me off. Yeah, I think so too. It was like Neil Adams was the most exciting guy. So to go from Pong must be his professional name. Yeah. So to go from him to anyone, even
World War II ace fighter pilot in World War II was Dick Bong. So
Notifier from mycomicshop.com. One of the comics on my want list is in. Probably a random issue of the Spirit that I'm
let's see if
missing.
I
It's
got an
already
email
in.
from them today.
What was that?
It reminds me. No, I didn't get an email from them today, but I got one from Atomic Avenue, which is very similar. Ooh,
yeah. I've had a bunch of stuff on my mycomicshop.com want list for ages now, and it just kind of sits there. And one day I'll get it, but not today. And there's not hard stuff. It's like issues of the black and white Spirit comic from Kitchen Sink that I'm missing.
Yeah.
And issues from Stray Bullets that I'm missing that are not hard to find at all. They're always on there.
Mm-hmm.
But it sends me an email, I guess, when they get a new one.
Yeah, I imagine some of those Kitchen Sink Spirits would be hard to track down.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I mean, the magazines, I think, would be harder to track down.
I'm thinking about the word.
I'm talking the comic.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Right, the black and white comic, not the magazines. Yeah. I think the comics are fairly plentiful. At least they are on mycomicshop.com.
It's usually whatever I want is pretty obscure and
yeah,
probably didn't have a big print run anyways. So
right. Yeah, it's like I always say, if your marketing plan is appealing to me, it's probably not very good. Which brings me to Tales of Mother F. Goose. By Frank Thierry is the writer. Joe Eisma is the artist. Well, I didn't realize Joe Eisma was the guy who did Morning Glories. Because his art doesn't look much like Morning Glories was a Image comic, I think in the late 2000s. Had some really nice covers. But
for me.
I tried reading some of it and couldn't get into it. But some really nice covers. And I remember liking this guy's art in it. But this one, it's kind of a gangster mixed with fairy tale story. It's in that graphic novel size. $7 for 40 pages, I think it is. And it was amusing. Wasn't my favorite of them. Wasn't my least favorite of them. I had a good time with it. All the three of the gangsters are the three blind mice. This gangster,
so it's kind of like Fables meets Godfather.
Sort of, except they're not really. They're not really fairy tale characters. They're just kind of. They're just kind of based on them, but they're real people, kind of thing.
Okay.
And it was just a tale of what's going on in this gangster world, kind of thing. And it was fun. Like I said, I'm really enjoying these one shots. Just because it's a done in one story, I kind of don't have to decide if I want to collect it or not.
Right.
And
already have.
It's like I got $7 right now, so I can get it. I don't have to think about whether I want to spend $4 or $5 a month on it for the next year or whatever. So it's amazing how that affects my enjoyment of them.
I never thought about that. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Well, you haven't been buying comics in a while, so
true.
You don't know how expensive they've got.
Very true.
Everything. Now, I did this before, but now when I buy a comic, I'm always like, oh, I liked that. Do I like it enough to pay $4 or $5? You do
How
the
much
math.
do I like it?
Yeah. Do I like it $30 worth? The answer isn't always yes. And sometimes it's just that I've got too many comics right now. There's no room on the pull list. I'll try the first issue, but unless it blows me away, it doesn't get on the pull list. Adams is a great artist. He was great for that story, but just for that last issue, he liked Buscema better. Good evening, Saul. I hate when a comic on my poll suddenly costs several dollars more than what I was expecting. Yeah, that's always a problem too. If it's a last issue, I'm kind of like, eh. But well, that really happens with Marvel these days. When all of a sudden the 10th issue is $10, and that's just absurd.
Well, also when I was getting comics, I would always pre-order them and pay for them before they came out. So you got them in a discount that way too. So.
Well, mine, I have a pull list, so I pay for them that week I get out. Right. So I don't pay. You actually can prepay a lot. Like I think it was in the 90s, I think, when Jack, there used to be an owner before Roy's. Roy's been the owner of this shop for, I don't know, 15 years now, at least, maybe 20. But in the 90s, it was this guy, Jack, who was an older, and he wasn't a comic guy. He was a business guy. He was just running a comic shop.
Yeah.
And at one, I think when in his day, if you had a pull list, you prepaid for everything. So some guys who've been around that long still do. Because occasionally I see guys going, put $50 on my tab. Put $50 on my pull list.
Yeah, what I do with the subscription service, it was tiered based on how much you ordered that month. Your discount got bigger.
Oh, so you were ordering from like one of those mail order services?
No, it was a local shop. Well,
local shop. Okay.
30 miles away, but you'd order out of previews every month. And even before that, way back in the day, not only are you getting previews, but you're also getting the Capital catalog as well. So you go through and put down everything you wanted to order and tally it up.
I never ordered out of previews, really. Because
as far as budgeting goes, it's good because you've got everything prepaid, and if something does become different than they let you know beforehand,
right?
So you can approve or nix it as you want.
I'm glad I don't look through previews, only because when I do, I find way too much stuff.
Some months I do, and some months there's just not much in there that interests me at all.
Chuck a bunch of annuals, then the end of the year, boom. Yeah, annual. People will say it's a good deal because there's more pages, but suddenly spending $25, you're spending $35 or more. Right. When you get more pages, but I don't want more pages in the random 10th issue of something. Yeah. That's what Marvel does all the time, and it's just discount comic book service is pretty. I know some people who order from there, but like I said, I just like going to my local comic shop, so that's where I go. I hang out and talk comics. It's a social event for me as much as buying comics.
It's a major event.
Gets me out of the house. Otherwise, DCBS is cheap.
First shop I ordered from, they gave you 5% off if you bought up to €50.
I get
and
some.
Then after that, and after that, 10% off. But you only needed to have one title in the pull list. Then you could just pick the rest off the shelf.
Okay. Yeah, I get my pull list stuff at some percentage on, like 10 maybe. I can't even remember.
Yeah, when you pre-ordered, I mean, you could get a discount as high as like 25, 30% off, depending on how much you spent that month total.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That makes a big difference.
Back when I wouldn't even think twice about dropping, $150 a month on comics.
Oh, those days.
Sign me up.
There's an LCS about to open in my city finally. Oh, cool. I hope they're a good one. Actually, I've been going to the same comic shop. I've been going to this one since the early 80s. That's how long it's been around.
Yeah.
So I really don't need to go to any other shop. There's like Wizard's comic shop is still open in the county, I think. And there was one that even opened like in my exact town, like 3 miles from here. And I never even got to visit it before it closed. It was only there for like a year, which I kind of knew was going to happen. But it's like being that I don't buy back issues, like so many people on YouTube love to go out and look for comics and go through the dollar bins. I almost never do that because I get all new issues.
All right.
So it's like I never have any need to go to another comic shop. Which shops would have a subscription membership offering a discount off cover? Yeah, a lot of them do. Mine does, but it's like a 10% discount. Cover. He's going to get cover in there. Yeah. My shop gives big spenders 25% off. I think for over 30 books on your pull list. Wow.
Yeah, but what, 30 books a month is what now? $150, rough?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, somewhere around there with all the annuals and stuff. Let's see what other books. This series ended. I didn't realize this was the last issue. Post Americana. It's got some really nice. Who's this again? Steve Scroce art, Dave Stewart on colors, phonographics, and it was a fun, violent series, but just okay. I would put this one at just okay. Cartoon robots showed up, and it's like post-apocalyptic, and
I like cartoon robots.
It was just okay.
So, would you give it a B-?
I'd give it a solid. Well, the art makes
C?
it. The art makes it a B at least.
Okay.
So I'd give it a B.
All right.
Because the art is just good in it. Steve Scroce does a good job. But it was definitely a B tier comic, I would say. But like I said, I enjoyed it. I don't know. Sleepy was buying this one. Can someone say back issues? There he is. Graphic Man's our back issue collector. We were when we were going over our different types of collector. I think we settled on back issue collector is someone who buy, and I'd be a current comic collector because I only buy current comics mostly.
I get both.
Do you know the only negative comments I ever get in the comment section is when I point out that comic collectors aren't hunters, they're gatherers? That is the only time I get negative comments. People do not like to hear that, so I won't mention it now. Hope you got some good stuff. Yeah, got to see if my local shops offer that. Yeah, good idea. Check it out.
No, but guys who collect keys are hunters.
Saul, did you ever shop at Comics Warehouse, the paperback exchange? That's still the comic shop that's around today. It was in Nanuet South in the 80s. First, it was the paperback exchange. Then it became the Comics Warehouse, except it never had a sign. I didn't even know its name was the Comics Warehouse till like they moved. I was assumed it was still the paperback exchange because that's what it was when because he started out, this guy Jack, selling used paperback books and quickly went into comics.
That's my kind of store.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I'm a hunter, damn it. You are, Sleepy.
Now, are you Craven the Hunter or are you a Craven Hunter?
Evening, gentlemen on the panel. My shop gives 20% of a free board. Oh, Hunters versus Gatherers. It's like a macho thing with the disgruntled ones. Probably. I think I remember. Yeah, that was.
It's sad to say this, but if I went to a shop and they give me free back and boards, unless they're Mylar, I don't care.
Yeah.
So keep them,
Yeah. Like I said, I'm from the age before boards, so I use bags, but I only use boards on stuff I'm going to handle a lot or old delicate stuff. I don't really use boards a lot. For the record, I'm a scavenger. These shops got to get the boxes off the floor, though. These days, it's getting tougher.
I told Tim a few years ago when we were at Heroes Con, I said, you're getting old when you don't want to, when you go to a comics show and you don't want to bend over to look at the boxes that are underneath the tables.
I'm telling you, Comic Crack, you got to add deep knee bends to your squats, to your exercise routine. Since I've done that, I've had little problem getting up and down. So I'm telling you that. Do some squats. I only do like 3 times a week. I do 3, not even with weight, just deep knee bends. I do 3 sets of 10, like 3 or 4 times a week, and
see, listen to Jared. He
okay.
can squat like nobody else.
Deep knee bends, yeah, that's the one. Well, then, Scott. But that has helped me. I just started doing them because one of the things I have to do every end of every fall is I've got a John Deere riding mower, and for winter I've got a plow that I put on front of it to clear the driveway. Well, putting that plow on involves a lot of getting up and getting down, and I'd find myself groaning, getting up and getting down, and finally, like I think 3 plows ago, I did the one just this week. So 2 years ago, I'm like, I got to add deep knee bends to my exercise routine. This is ridiculous. I can barely get up and down. And since I have, it's been like, whoa.
You realize that if that piece of equipment ever left you, you'd get a John Deere ladder.
It runs away. It's 20 years old and it's not running away anyway. Lucky it starts. Let's see. Here's my other B-level comic, Crossover, though I liked the twist this one took. Because this is the one where Comic Crack's groaning at you. This is the one that's superheroes have kind of crossed over into the real world, and they're in Denver in this dome, and there's been, Madman has showed up and other indie guys.
Like the Simpsons movie. They're in a giant dome.
Meanwhile, someone is also killing, because all the superheroes showed up and have caused some havoc to society. Superhero comics have taken a plunge in popularity. And somebody's been murdering comic book writers. They've been
killing us for years.
So at the end, and like Brian Michael, we've had the 2 Powers cops in the last issue too, and they're interrogating Brian Michael Bendis this issue, and it's written by Donnie Cates.
That's actually kind of funny.
I'm going to give you a spoiler here at the end just because it's amusing, and really I'm reading this book anyway. But at the end, they're like, "Oh, we got to get where is this?" Well, they're looking up one writer because they're trying to figure out who's writing their story. Because this, like, the Powers people are like, if we're here now, who's writing this story? If in the other world we were just a story.
So it's a whole big meta plot.
So yeah, it's this weird meta plot. And
oh God, it's like that Daffy Duck episode of Looney Tunes.
They start talking about how big of an egotistical hack would they be to have they can steal our shit? And they're like, "Oh, do you really think he's crazy enough to write himself into the story?" So at the end, in the last page of the story, right? They're here his name is Donnie Cates. The last paragraph is he really enough of an egotistical hack asshole to write himself into his own story? So Donnie Cates may be writing what's going on in this story. It just took it off another level from Stan Lee and Jack and Steve Ditko writing themselves into the story.
Right.
Crossover sounds like a series of meta gimmicks in search of a plot. Yes.
I was describing what Star Trek is these days.
Tim bought the trade of it and did not like it at all. I'm saying this is one of those that I think reading it in small bits is better. It's just kind of more fun now. I wouldn't want to reread all of this, I don't think. Like Jared, I like talking to the comic shop about comic content with others at the shop, but it's harder to do. It's funny, though, when non-reader collectors complain about Marvel and DC. Yeah, I'm lucky that I have been able to because I've been working on the days. But my friend Rob, I've been meeting at the comic shop. We've been going to the comic shop or meeting at the comic shop since high school, so that's fun too. I get to hang out with him. So there's always someone to talk to. Dinner's on later. Didn't Dave Sim put himself into the... I think he did show up in Cerebus.
I haven't read enough of Cerebus to know.
I think I can't remember if I remember seeing Dave Sim draw himself, so.
It must have been in the second half.
Yeah, it would be in the second half if he did. When he added all sorts of real people to it. Who did Dave Sim use? He used Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
Who was with Mick? Was it David Bowie with Mick Jagger?
I believe so.
And he used Oscar Wilde.
Yeah.
He
wrote Neil Gaiman in some stuff later on.
He did.
Who else did he put in there?
Did a bunch of people. He did a couple other writers too.
He did parodies on some characters, but
right. But I'm talking about real actual people.
Yeah.
He used that, like he had a whole book with Oscar Wilde or two, and a whole book with Mick Jagger. Groucho. Oh, that's right.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
Groucho's the original one he used. I almost forgot about him.
Big deal. Groucho shows up in every issue of Dylan Dog in Italy. There's a niche.
Norman Mailer and Keith Richards. He had Keith Richards with Mick Jagger, I think.
There's a Giuseppe Bergman album where Milo Manara writes and draws writes himself into the story along with Hugo Pratt.
That's always a tough thing to do, pull off, writing yourself in the story.
Yeah, especially because the story starts losing reality coherence. It starts moving into dreamlike territory.
Yeah.
Von Bodie did that a couple times with Cheech Wizard, where he wrote himself into.
He was pretty dreamlike to begin with, so.
True. Very true.
And guess what I have for tonight in honor of George Perez? Some special read, rip, and slabs with George Perez comics. Let's see. What do we have here? Well, we'll start with this one. There we go. George Perez Indies.
Oh, gosh.
We got him doing Thunder Agents from the early 80s, Cross-Gen Chronicles from the early aughts, and Crimson Plague from the late aughts, I think. When did I just say that was from?
2012?
Oh,
I don't remember.
Neither do I. So
Cross-Gen Chronicles, about 2000 and...
Yeah, Chronicles is early 2000s. 2004, maybe. Crimson Plague is the one I can't remember, and I think I just looked at it.
Okay, I already know which ones I got.
Hold on, I'm going to dig out that Crimson Plague issue just to look. See if it's 3 decades of George Perez.
Oh, no, that thing was already in the 2000s. Although the first issue was 98 or 99.
Oh, yeah, this is 2000.
Yeah, the Crimson...
I didn't realize this was before Cross-Gen Chronicles.
Yeah, Guerrilla Comics. But issue number 0 reprints the story that came out at Event Comics.
He's going to rip Cross-Gen, slab Crimson Plague, and read Thunder Agents. Okay.
Same thing here.
I'm going to do mine slightly different because I actually know a little bit about Thunder Agents. So I'm going to rip that one. I don't know a damn thing about the other two, but I like the cover to Crimson Plague the best, so I'm going to slab that one. I'm going to end up reading Cross-Gen Chronicles because it's got 2 guys with swords.
I actually want to reread Cross-Gen Chronicles. I have that one. Actually, I have all 3 of these now that I think of it. But I'm going to read Cross-Gen Chronicles, slab Thunder Agents because I like that cover, and have to rip up Crimson Plague. What has he got here? He is going to read Thunder Agents, slab Chronicles, and rip Crimson Plague. Well, we're both ripping Crimson Plague. But yeah, that Thunder Agents series was pretty good. Perez did some, Ditko did some. They had other big talent of the early 80s on it, too.
Ordway too, wasn't it?
What was that?
Jerry Ordway?
Yeah, Ordway. That's right. Ordway did some. It was good. It was pretty good stuff. I have all the. Matter of fact, that was one of the ones back in the 2000s where I was missing an issue or two. So I had to, when my comic shop .com first opened, I got it from there because it's like the first year or so that my comic shop.com opened, they were the only place who had all these weird, obscure indies from the 80s or 90s that you could get for just a couple of dollars. So like I filled out like a missing issue here or there in like 10 or 12 series from the 80s of my weird indie stuff. Because otherwise that's stuff you never could find.
It's hard to find these days.
Yeah. You can still find a lot of it on mycomicshop.com, but
right.
Yeah, that would, like I said, I really enjoyed all. Well, I can't say I really enjoyed Crimson Plague. I don't even remember it. I remember being okay. I remember really enjoying his cross-gen Chronicles stuff and the Thunder Agents too. What was the first Perez you read, Scott?
Oh God, I have no idea.
Avengers?
No, I don't have any of the Avengers.
Fantastic Four?
I
forget he did the Fantastic Four. I don't have any of those issues left.
He did the Fantastic Four stuff before Byrne, right?
Oh, long before.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I've read any of that either.
He did that stuff in like the mid-70s, his Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I don't have any Fantastic Four from that era that I can remember.
I used to have some, but I haven't.
I honestly don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. I think mine was that Avengers stuff.
Mine was the first part of Black Widow Web of Intrigue, because they were running it. They were still running 1972 Avengers when they ran that Black Widow story. So they only started publishing his Avengers about a year later.
Wow, a Teen Titans book for Vidal. Yeah,
I might have to say the earliest stuff I can remember having consecutive issues of was probably his Wonder Woman stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe
that wasn't. When did that come out? The 80s.
80s. Yeah.
80s. George Perez, though, is responsible for me being a regular DC Comics buyer, because I was, as a kid, I just I was a Marvel kid. Mid 70s to late 70s DC just was not for me because it just wasn't very good. But I think he did the JLA before the Titans. Whichever one he did the JLA first, right? That got me to buy DC book. I was just like, oh, George Perez is drawing that. I was probably what year did the Titans come out? 81 or 80?
80.
80. So I was 14. So I was like, all right, George Perez is drawing for DC. I'm going to buy some DC comics. And after that, Gil Kane was drawing Superman, so I started buying some of that and started buying some other stuff that had good Marvel artists on it. Or at least guys I thought of as Marvel artists, because I wasn't around in the 60s. Yeah, Perez moving to DC pulled him over there too. Because I had that JLA was probably the first DC comic I ever bought monthly off the stands.
Okay.
I don't think I ever bought anything. He did the JLA before with a great Dark Side story. Yeah, I'm talking about the stuff he did right before issue 200. I can't even remember what it was. I remember the Starro, the original one. Yeah, Perez pulled me into DC too. Miller on Batman. Yeah, Miller on Batman was a little later, so I was already there for that. My first Legion of Superhero books had covers by him. The exact same thing about DC. Yeah, they're just not. I just found them childish. And how many it was a prelude to Legion's Dark Side saga. It's funny that Legion Dark Side saga was the first time I ever read a Dark Side story. because I had never read the Kirby first. Those were all a little bit before my time, and since they were DC, I never tracked them down, and nobody ever said you have to read these and lent them to, because I had a guy who lived near me, John, who was his name. He was like 2 years older than me. So he would always be like, oh, you have to read these Jim Starlin, Adam Warlocks. Oh, you have to read these Jim Starlin, Captain Marvels. Oh, you have to read. And he would also, like, since he was a couple of years older, I was like in junior high school, he was going into high school. A lot of his friends would be selling their comics. So he'd be like, oh, my friend is selling his comics. You got to buy these ones and these ones and these ones. And I just, they were a nickel a comic or whatever. So I had a lot of stuff from like 4 or 5 years before my time, but never any DC stuff. So I never saw, it wasn't until like I was buying the Legion off the stands, the Giffen and Paul Levitz one. And they had this big build up to some villain is coming. And when they showed up, it was Darkseid. And I was like, I think that's a Jack Kirby villain. I only had like enough knowledge of it to know that, and I don't even know how I knew that, but I really had no idea who Darkseid was, besides a big bad villain who doesn't belong in the Legion's timeline.
All right.
I probably read about it in some comic magazines.
I used to love comic magazines back then. They were great.
Yeah. Well, it was the only place you could read about comics.
Very true.
Now we can come on here and talk about comics for hours at a time.
Your sources were limited in comparison.
Yeah. Back then, it was like a couple of people you knew were really into comics. I hear all the time. I just heard it this week by someone. Oh, back in the day, all kids collected comics. It didn't. I'm like, no, they didn't. I was there.
Yeah, when I was below the age of 10, say, I don't think I knew anybody else that collected comics.
My neighbors and I
did. We just didn't know that we knew each other.
Yeah, my neighbors and I, and in high school, you didn't dare mention that you collected comics. Mm-hmm. That was such an uncool thing.
College was a completely different story. That's when I got back into.
What was that?
College was a different story. That's when I got back into collecting comics and knew people that did, and we looked each other's tastes. Yeah.
By the time I was 13, the two people I knew collected comics. One I lost touch with. I think we didn't go to the same high school. We were classmates in elementary, but we didn't go to the same high school. And the other one stopped reading comics. And then I didn't know anybody read comics for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Comics were uncool. My high school too. No, it was part of a culture for many kids, but not all. Yeah, not even the majority, I don't think. It's not even like 50%, 51% of kids read comics. More like
I'd be interested in seeing. You could never get the numbers now. You couldn't do the research.
Right.
I'd be interested in seeing how many, the percentages on rural versus urban demographics on comics, readers back then.
Matter of fact, it was a couple of years ago. My friend Rob, who's my one friend from high school, and he also collects comics. And he's the one I meet at the shop. We were meeting at the shop, and this guy walked in. And we were both like, is that so-and-so? And it was a guy we went to high school with, who neither of us have seen since high school.
Right.
He collected comics. We never knew because he was a jock. So I imagine he didn't let anyone know he collected comics.
Exactly.
But it's like, how did we never know you collected comics? He was just like, hey, you're still uncool. I swear it was that much of a stigma that usually if there's another kid who collects comics in your high school class, you're going to talk to them about comics.
Right.
Wrestling, music, teen mags, and of course porn when someone Oh, magazines. Those are the magazines that were big with kids. Yeah.
Remember Pizzazz magazine?
Oh, I had a subscription to Pizzazz, I think.
Remember Pizzazz?
Yes, I did. Was that the one that had a comic, like a Marvel comic in the middle of it? There was like one page, or at the end, there was like one page of comics in it.
That I do not remember.
I think it was Pizzazz, but they also had comic stories sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to get that. Yeah, when someone stole their dad or uncle's stash.
Unless Terrence, he was just buying them by himself back then. So.
Mm-hmm. And the next one I got, Gilliam March's Laura and Other Stories. This is his stuff from a while, and this is some of his early stuff, I think, from Europe.
Is he coloring with watercolors?
Let's see. Well, you can't tell. Computers mimic watercolor so much. It looks computerized. Looks like computerized watercolor. Those clouds look too much like sort of real clouds to not be computer. Those aren't watercolor clouds.
Okay.
So I would guess it's digital. Yeah. And to do this kind of dappled sunlight is really digital. It's tough to do dappled sunlight like that.
Charles Vess is really good at doing that.
Yeah. One of the tells of digital is the whites. Because I enjoyed Lolita. Was that
Does he mean Lolita?
Was that its name when it came out? In which country is he from again?
Spain.
Spain.
But Spain is from the U.S., right?
Here's an interesting thought.
No, Spain from Hawaii. That's why he has the Catalonia. He's from Catalonia, so he doesn't even speak Spanish on a daily basis. It's a bit like being from the swamps in Louisiana. You still speak French.
Here's a thought I had about this, an observation about myself. I was reading this and I like it. It's not as good as Carmen, but oh well. But I realized a couple of things. One, an irrational thing. I was kind of being annoyed by this. And one of the things, it's not Spain, it's spam. One of the things I realized, one of the things that annoyed me about this is stories about sort of young, pretty women who are unhappy annoy me on some level, because I assume if you're young and pretty, you should be happy. I know that's not true.
You would think there would be some logic behind that, but yeah.
Right? I mean, I know that's not true, but and it also led me to realize I don't think there's that many stories about young unhappy men. There are some, but they're usually disaffected youth stories. Like the originals. What's that? The Outsiders. They're not. It's kind of like, it's not like the individual dude is unhappy. It's that the youth is disaffected, and they're part of the youth that's disaffected. So of course they're unhappy. But I think there's a lot more stories about young women who are unhappy. But I don't know. But I'm not 100% sure. That thought just came into my head as I was thinking about my own prejudice against stories about pretty young women being unhappy. With me thinking that, what do you mean they're unhappy? The same song from my head, Scott Powell. I know a teacher acquaintance who had Max and Men magazines in her high school class because she didn't want the boys to.
We never had teachers like that.
That's hilarious. But I was,
we did have a honors English class, and at one time, yeah, they were going to show us the movie Caligula until they figured out what it actually was. And they're like, "No, we can't show that." I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, James Dean film. I haven't watched them a lot of them in a lot of years, but that was once again, that might be a disaffected youth thing, because when the guy's unhappy, it's always about the time and place and the age they're in. Like in Laura, when the woman is unhappy, it's kind of about her personal story. So I just found that was Peter Parker unhappy? I don't know if he was unhappy or on the hero's journey. But they definitely play him as a sad sack. They played him as a sad sack a lot of times. But it wasn't, I don't know. I don't know.
Some of both.
Yeah. She was paranoid and very right wing. But again, I enjoyed this story, except for Laura's kind of unhappy and trying to, well, I don't know if she's trying to, some guy who she wasn't dating broke up with her. Yeah, and there's like I said, the tell for digital is how crisp the edges of the whites are. Because in real watercolor or real paint, you either have to put opaque paint over the top of a color, which sometimes bleeds through, or you have to let the white of the page show through, and there's usually not crisp edges around it. So I can always, if they're not using a technique where they're burning out their whites, it's tough to tell. But when they're burning out their whites, it's easy to tell it's digital.
Gotcha.
Did a nice dappled sunshine effect in here too. But I'm enjoying it. But like I said, it's weird. I didn't realize till I was like, you know what? I really have a prejudice against young, pretty women unhappy stories. Wow, something I learned about myself reading that.
There you go.
And like I said, it's irrational because I know that being young and pretty doesn't make you happy. Depressed males are violent in an outward way, and depressed women turn it into. Yeah, I would think, and I think that affects the story.
I just got this mental image of a whole bunch of Morrissey albums.
Right, you don't even that, you know, and I think that's why disaffected male stories, unhappy young men stories, they always find groups and they always get violent.
Well, it's like the Breakfast Club minus the violence.
But I'd never thought about that before. How many, the difference between young, unhappy men and women stories. Well, let me show you this just for a minute, because I didn't know this existed until I took it out of the library.
One kid that wasn't happy and turns to violence, it's in the Invisibles. When the comic starts, the kid that gets picked up by the Invisibles, he's unhappy with society, and they give him an outlet.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the general story for young unhappy men. They turn to violence, and that's the story. That's every story. They don't sit around and mope about their unhappiness for 2 issues.
Mm-hmm.
And though you will find young unhappy men in like rom-coms, but by the end of it, they've met their soulmate and everything's good. I mean, that's I don't know if that's not even like the same kind of story I'm talking about. I hate stories that start with a male protagonist losing his job. It scares me deep down about getting fired. I can understand that.
It sucks. What's the movie Falling Down that had Kirk Douglas or not?
Oh yeah, that's it.
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas, right? Yeah. The one that was nothing like it was described as. Do you remember the controversy when that movie came out?
No, I don't.
Oh, there was a big controversy because people thought the movie was about disaffected white man beating up minorities.
No.
So they saw it as sort of a broader social statement. Then I saw the actual movie. It was nothing like that. It was just a movie.
Gotcha.
Losing your job after a certain age is
Yeah,
very scary.
if you lose your job in when you're in your 50s, it's not good.
Having lost most of my freelance work when I turned 50, I can tell you I know the statistics. When you lose your job after the age 50, you have a 90% chance of never getting a job as good again. How crazy is that? But meanwhile, there's yet another Great Gatsby graphic novel adaptation that I didn't know because it came into the public domain in 2021, I think. Because I took another one out of the library.
So now there's 3 different adaptations that you
What was
know
that?
of? So is that a third one that you know of?
This is the third one. There's the one I've been buying that the issue 2 just came out of.
Gotcha.
There's the one I think I showed it this summer that I took out of the library.
Yeah.
And this is another one that came out early in the year. And it's by K. Woodman Maynard. And I remember so far it's the one that's by the Portuguese artist that I like the best, the one that's on the second issue. The one that I read earlier in the year, I describe it as I just read another book, another digital book that I took off on Hoopla. I forget the name of it, but it's about it's about a woman and her love of true crime was the book. And and she's a New Yorker cartoonist. And it was what I call just get it done cartooning. And the first Gatsby novel was kind of like that too. And I don't want to say it's bad because it's not. It's just that
it's just mediocre.
It's mediocre, and it doesn't pay enough. If they were to spend more time on these pages, they would be better. But they just have to get it, and that is what I call a style of cartooning these days, where you just want to get it something on paper. And if you had 2 days to do a page, it might be really good. But you don't have 2 days a page. You got to get this page done in half a day. Because otherwise you'll make no money.
Got 8 pages a day, right?
Yeah. So, and this is not quite that, but it's almost there's some sort of just get it done. I mean, I can just tell this drawing wasn't labored over, and it could be, and the guy could do better. But it's actually better than the one from early in the year.
Okay.
And he's actually trying some interesting stuff with places like The Great Gatsby is so much about excess. And Fitzgerald crafted that novel. So it's like we know how much time Fitzgerald spent crafting that novel. Mm-hmm. He wrote about it, and it's a relatively short novel at only 200 pages, but it's extremely well crafted. He really wanted to make a highly structured sort of novel with lots of symbolism in it, which is weird because it doesn't read that way when you actually read it, but when you examine it, it's very, very kind of highly structured. And so I would think you would need Dave Gibbons to do it. You know, like he did with Watchmen kind of thing, just that much structure to it. And this stuff just doesn't have that much. It's got some fun bits to it. But overall, it's just kind of middle of the road. And actually, I like the art better in this one than the first one I read this year. But the writing is actually worse in this. Because the writing is really only editing. I don't think they're rewriting anything. They're just choosing which Fitzgerald parts to put in where.
Gotcha. So in other words, they need P. Craig Russell, right?
They need P. Craig Russell. Yeah, there you go. They need somebody with that quality of craftsmanship. to really do this just. Like I actually, like I said, the guy with the best craftsmanship is the Portuguese artist on the one from wherever that is, whatever the publisher is. That one's definitely the best one so far because of the level of craftsmanship. But I think they should, spend even more time like to really do a novel like that was tough. I loved the To Kill a Mockingbird one. That one was that I read this summer. That one was excellent. Jane, a Jane Eyre graphic novel set in New York City in the present by Ramon Perez, and it was pretty good. I read it last weekend. I'll have to check that one out. Simple styles can be very expensive. Oh yeah, a simple.
Alex
it's very complex to do simple.
Yeah. Alex Toth is a master of that.
Right. What's his name? Seth, who does Clyde fans. Wow, he's my favorite guy who can draw simple. This isn't that. This is more, like I said, it's just get it done simple, which I understand and I have no problem with. Except when you're adapting The Great Gatsby. I think you gotta come up with something more.
So what you need is an adaptation of one of the Tolstoy novels done by Chris Ware. That's 800 pages long, right?
Chris Ware's another guy who's great at simplicity. Yes, The Great Gatsby needs some luxury. The Great Gatsby, the story, the man himself in the story the name is ironic. He was a glorious failure. You need some glory. Oh yeah. I think either of them could do a terrific job.
Those two guys could do anything and make it work. Anything.
Right. Like, but I don't like to put down whoever he is, Kay Woodwin Maynard, because I enjoy that this exists. I don't want it not to exist. I just think it's kind of a swing and a miss. But it's also funny because it's the opposite of the movies. In that the two Gatsby movies, the one from the 70s with Robert Redford, and the one from 2010 with Baz Luhrmann one. I like both of those movies, but they're not really good movies. The reason I like them is they're glorious failures. In that the movie makers kind of put everything in there. They did everything they could to make this movie. Their love for Gatsby, the novel, shows in their movies. They just kind of don't work.
That's interesting that you bring that up, because there's a lot of movies that are pet projects, that are passion projects by certain directors, writers, what have you. But the product that comes out, you would think their love for this project really does not show in what they did. Does that make sense?
Baz Luhrmann did possibly one of the greatest party scenes ever put on film in that movie. It's just terrific. That one little piece of filmmaking. Mm-hmm. The rest, it's a glorious failure, much like the character Gatsby himself.
Gotcha.
So I would think if these are the opposite, the two I've read so far are kind of the opposite of glorious failures. They're more along the lines of just get it done, which there's just no glory in just get it done. Mira Sorvino starred in Great Gatsby miniseries. It was okay. I've never seen that. I went looking for that a little while ago this summer when I was hooked on everything Great Gatsby. And I could not find that one. But it's like all the Gatsby like films and even the TV show, they're not well reviewed. They get like 6s.
Yeah.
So you by that measure, but if you even if you don't watch, it's probably on YouTube. Look up the Baz Luhrmann Great Gatsby party scene, because it's just, you want to be at that party. You want life to be that party.
But you want medical technology from current times.
Man, I really would like to. Dave Stevens' Great Gatsby. That would be. He'd never finish it. He wouldn't.
Dave Stevens, anything would. I mean,
Yeah.
Make I don't know. Great Expectations. Be
I think it aired on Bravo and A&E when the channels had good content. Yeah, I think it did. I remember, like I said, I looked this summer when I was looking for everything Great Gatsby. I ran across that mini series of Great Gatsby, but I couldn't find it anywhere.
I just had a thought. Other than Sherlock Holmes, why aren't there more adaptations of detective stories, like famous detectives in comics?
No, they did Kolchak.
True.
Going back.
Right. I don't think of Kolchak as your typical famous detective, but there are a lot of Kolchak comics.
You mean like Columbo? Too hard to write.
Poirot, who Miss Marple, whoever.
But the French have a line of adapting the Agatha Christie novels.
Oh, we don't have that here in the States.
Yeah.
Brother Cadfael would be good.
I'm going to take out the Murder on the Orient Express so you guys can see.
Yeah, I think mystery stories are too hard to write. They're like a specialty. To get somebody who can write horror and mystery stories, comics and mystery stories,
right,
I think is a tall order. Adapting a mystery story might be the way to go.
Right.
Yeah, Paolo, I was just saying, I think mystery is too hard to write.
Mm-hmm.
Getting somebody who can write comics and mystery stories is tough. So that's why adapting something would be the way to go.
Hold that cover back up for a second. See, that just reminds me of the movie poster for the Polar Express.
Me too.
Yeah.
A train in the snow, that'll do it.
Yeah, but the art inside is very classic. So
yeah, let's solo you so we can see it.
Embiggen him.
Embiggen him. Oh, okay. Classic European style artwork.
Yeah. And since the Murder on the Orient Express is mostly a lot of people standing around and talking, there isn't that much action.
Huh. Lots of scenes of that train. No, it's funny. I actually read that without knowing I read that.
Mm-hmm.
In that my mother used to have a lot of Agatha Christie novels on the old paperbacks on the shelf. So I read through a lot of Agatha Christie stuff.
Right.
Except that wasn't originally called Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh.
It was originally published as Murder in the Calais Coach. And that's the name that the copy my mother had was. So I remember reading it the whole time, and they call the train the Orient Express in the book. And I'm like, what am I reading? I'm like,
an unauthorized reproduction.
Novels that take place on the Orient Express. I was so confused until I found out later that yes, it was in fact Murder on the Orient Express under its original name.
Right.
I'm like, she couldn't have written two novels about a murder on the Orient Express. There's just no way.
Here's an interesting page. This has a lot of manga swipes.
Hold on, let me embiggen you again.
The big mouth open there, I can see. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it looks more like stuff that you'd see in the 70s, like Barefoot Gen or of Lupin the Third.
Huh.
But
want that kind of mystery?
Yeah, but this one looks more American.
Huh.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I never thought about Watchmen as a mystery, but I guess it was.
Right, we're so caught up in the genre deconstruction, and that's what we get every time there's a Watchmen discussion. Like we're always talking about how important it is to the genre and what they did to superheroes. Yeah, but if you follow the story, it's Rorschach hunting down a killer.
Howard the
And
Butler in
yeah.
Murder on the Orient Express. Are they
Mhm.
are they okay? They're on the right side, the
That
correct
may
side.
be based on Gore Vidal's comment there. I think I'm the only person in North America that does not like Jack Nicholson.
You don't like
I don't
Jack
like-
Nicholson?
No, he
Portuguese.
and I also don't like Christian Slater because he thinks he's Jack Nicholson Jr.
Yeah. What sold me on Jack Nicholson, I was kind of tired of him, was Hoffa.
I haven't seen Hoffa.
When I watched Hoffa, I forgot I was watching Jack Nicholson. That's how good he was in that role.
Gotcha. And it may just be the movies of his that I've seen and haven't seen, but it just always seems like he's playing Jack Nicholson to me.
He does in a lot of movies.
Right.
But like I said, he's such a good actor.
Now,
That, like I said, I forgot I was watching Jack Nicholson.
I mean, having said that, one of the very first movies he ever did was one of the Poe adaptations he was in. Oh crap!
Yeah, he was terrific in Hoffa. I can't even, like I said, Jack Nicholson has played. He often chews the scenery, and as himself sometimes too. We feel he's got that sort of Jack Nicholson character.
Right.
So when you can make me forget that it's Jack Nicholson, wow, is that a good job?
I think he was in The Raven. Was one of the first movies he ever did.
The Raven.
He was actually pretty decent in that, but he wasn't. He wasn't playing Jack Nicholson yet. So.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I think they label all of their graphic novels young adult. Even though I got like one at my actual library, I went downstairs to the young adult section to get some comics. And one was like a European comic filled with sex and nudity. And I'm like,
right.
No one looks at these, do they? They just label them young adult and put them on the shelf.
It's interesting how people categorize both books and music and just throw them all in one category. It's like, you guys really are not paying attention here, are you?
Nicholson as Joker. I'm not a Joker fan.
No, not really.
It didn't do much for me.
He wasn't awful either, but it just didn't bowl me over.
It's a lot of favorites.
Yeah.
He's good, He deserves his reputation, even if some movies he plays Jack Nicholson on occasion. Like that, Hoffa was the one because that one was soon after the Joker and a lot of other things where he was Jack being Jack, and it was like I forgot it was Jack Nicholson watching it. He was so good. Oh, want to see one that I got for free this week? The Asylum of Horrors. Because I'm see if you can see it down here. There's a big, huge scar in the paper. I don't even know if I can catch it in this light. Mm. It's like it's like it must have been on the paper roll itself. You know how sometimes a paper roll crinkles up in its process, and when you make it, so there's this big, huge crinkle down it. So there it is. You can kind of see it there. My comic shop owner was like, I got to throw it out. You want it? I was like, sure. I'll cut it up and put it on magic cards. But it was a pretty good little horror anthology by Asylum Press. Who does it?
I wonder if that's
by Pablo Alvarez. Dead Ops by Grant Fragaloche, Timothy Bacon. Cicada by Dwayne Harris. And The Body by Paolo Barbieri and Karina Altonaga.
I wonder if that's the same Asylum Press that was working back in the early 90s.
I don't know. But it was, and it was even better than the comics. They had some horror illustrations here in the back that I was like, wow, these are pretty nice. Where's another one? Just a couple of them. Well, they're just, very imaginative kind of horror. Timothy Bacon, that is, doing that one. There's another one. But I was like, wow, these are nice illustrations. But they're just, horror stories done pretty well, sort of like every horror anthology you've ever read, except this one. I'd give this one a B. Much more, without the comics code, you can actually do horror stories. Whoops, knocked that over. Here, let's do one more. Let's see what do I want? I want share. Let's get another George Perez in here. Not that one. Let's go. There we go.
There.
Late 80s, late 70s, early 80s, George Perez. Teen Titans FF Justice League.
Okay.
That's one of those Justice Leagues that got me buying DC Comics. And of course, Teen Titans, too.
I already know which order I'm going to read.
Read Justice League, rip Fantastic Four, slab New Teen Titans.
I think we're the exact opposite, pal. I'm going to read Fantastic Four, the slab Justice League, and rip up New Titans.
Every woman in this, huh? Yeah, nice cover on that too. Let's see. What am I going to do? I think I'm going to slab the Titans because I like that cover best. Oh, it's a bondage cover. I can get extra money for it. I mean, realize that. Does CGC put bondage cover on a notation on anything?
That's an Overstreet thing. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
It also makes me wonder, these slab books in, say, 50 years or so, they're not using archival quality plastics on those.
Yeah, you're supposed to get it re-slabbed every so often. Read JL, rip Titans, and slab the FF. So I think I'm going to have to go.
Opinions on this one.
I think I'm going to have to go back to my Marvel roots and read FF and rip Justice League as I slab the Titans too. I think I'm going to have to do. Even though I might like this, I don't remember reading that issue of 188, but I know I read that JLA. But I rip FF, slab Titans, read JLL.
Yeah, that's twice that Gore agrees with me. But that's what you get since we both hate Saga. We agree on everything else.
Which will be back in January, so you'll be able to see it on my pull list again.
I haven't read Saga, but I finished reading Paper Girls. That was
he liked Paper Girls.
Better than I expected.
Better than he expected.
Yes, indeed.
And speaking of better than I expected in horror books, The Silver Coin #7 is out. The last 2 issues of this book I've really liked.
It's an interesting cover.
This is the one, Michael Walsh is the artist, who I'm not really sure where he comes from. And every issue he gets a new writer to write a horror story. And the silver coin is just sort of the motif that reminded me Jared unsubscribed. Remember, those are teens with those bodies, right? Yeah. And the silver coin is just there's just sort of this evil silver coin in every issue. At this point, it really doesn't have much to do with the story.
It's like the Lochnar in the Heavy Metal movie, right?
Yeah, it's just
a framing device. Yeah.
And I remember when I read this, I kind of expected there to be a tie between some sort of overall plot, and there's not. It's just each one. I mean, how could there be? There's a different writer on each book,
right?
So each one is a done in one, and the art is just really nice. He's got this.
It's kind of like a House of Mystery kind of thing.
It's very much like the House of Mystery, only not for kids in the 70s.
Right.
There's some nudity right there, only for grown-ups. And the stories are, evil doesn't get its comeuppance. Oh, there's a nice.
Gotcha.
Evil wins in most of these stories. Or at least, the people. It's not like the people are really good. but the silver coin wins because that's the super evil. But this one was all about a loser on a winning streak at a casino. Of course, it's going to end, and he's on the winning streak because of the silver coin. And of course, it's all going to end badly.
Yeah.
And of course, it does. And I remember I really liked this issue. I really liked 6. So this series has been getting better in my estimation, which is always good.
Yeah, it's always good when things get better.
Yeah. Which reminds me, I was watching, that one just reminded me of I was watching Sleepy Reader's countdown today.
I have that one bookmarked, but I haven't read it. I haven't watched it yet.
And he was talking about what book was it? The Me You Love in the Dark. And which just ended with its 5th issue. That's the Scotty Young, and I can't remember the artist on it. The artist terrific. But he was saying he was kind of disappointed by the last issue because he wanted more story to it. There wasn't, and someone I can't remember who it was. I think they didn't name the story, but Sleepy Reader said it was The Me You Name in the Dark. But somebody on Twitter made a comment like, "I just read a comic." A 5-issue comic that would have been an 8-page story in House of Mystery in the 70s. That's why it just reminded. But I just want to defend The Me You Love in the Dark because there's certain. I was kind of always like most of us comic book fans and story fans are very plot driven.
Yeah, that's true.
Because most stories are in their plot, and I think it was, the complaint about this was there wasn't enough plot. There was 2 issues of plot in 5 issues. One of my favorite reviews of Jeff Darrow and Frank Miller's Hard Boiled back in the day was 8 pages of story crammed into a 24-page issue. And I have to say, I agreed with that back in the day.
No.
That was kind of my take, too. And still, until I think it was Seth, I started reading his stuff and enjoying it. And I was reading something about something he said. I can't remember what, if it was an interview or whatever. But he laid down an idea that I'd never thought of before, but I've thought of ever since. When he said, plot, it's not about the plot. It's about the feeling it makes you feel. And I was like, oh, stories don't have to be about the plot. That's not the only.
Yeah, it's just a whole different mindset on how to approach it.
It's a whole different mindset. And I think if you approach The Me You Love in the Dark with that mindset, because that's how I approach a lot of stuff now. Mm-hmm. But I had never thought of that before reading him say it. I was always there's not enough plot in this guy.
I see what you mean. It's like comparing an Isaac Asimov story to a Ray Bradbury story. Isaac Asimov is very plot driven, where Ray Bradbury is very emotional driven.
It's about what it makes you feel, mood. So I think that The Me You Love in the Dark should best be approached by it's about what it makes you feel. Because there was a lot of buildup to kind of almost an inevitable end, but you got a lot of feeling along the way. So I just wanted to defend it's The Me You Love. It did. I don't think it had too little plot. I think it had just the right amount of plot. It wasn't because it wasn't about the plot at all.
I like your analogy of the analysis of Hardboiled.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah.
But who cares? You get to see.
That's not the point of Hardboiled. Right. Hardboiled is not about the plot at all. And I didn't see that when I first read Hardboiled.
It's what I would call a Jeff Darrow delivery vehicle. Yeah.
Right. I bought the first issue of Hard Boiled, and then didn't buy any others because that was my review of it. Nothing happened in here.
How many were there? Were there only 2?
3 or 4?
I don't remember.
When it came out in individual issues, there was.
I don't. Wow, I don't remember.
I can't remember exactly the number.
Okay. I have them all.
I only have the first one because I went, I agreed with that critic who said 8 pages of plot crammed into a 24, 32-page story.
And here I am over here in the other corner, like, but it's Jeff Darrow.
Right. The point of the book was the way the story makes you feel.
Right.
That's the whole point to Hard Boiled. You're not supposed to. There's almost no plot to it. The plot is superfluous.
Right. So, I mean, in some ways, it's how some noir stories are.
Yeah.
It's all mood and atmosphere, and the plot's kind of like, it's secondary.
Right. But like I said, I just didn't see, like I used to not be able to see that. I used to be all about the plot. And when I see someone, I read someone say that about the Me You Love in the Dark, I think they missed the point.
I think a lot of it may just be the mindset that you go into, that you carry as a reader going into it.
And I think a lot of it is also, like Sleepy said, they never quite told you what the ghost/monster/horror alien was.
Gotcha.
And I know a lot of, like my friend Rob, who I mentioned before, I needed to come, he loves backstory.
So do I.
You love backstory too. I do not love backstory. I am okay without backstory.
Give me all the backstory you got.
Right. As I said, Rob's the same way. I'm like, I don't need I don't want to read a prequel of how Luke Skywalker got the 3 pips on his jacket or whatever. I just don't.
It's like the movie Pulp Fiction. I want to know what the hell that thing in Marcellus Wallace's suitcase was.
Though I have to say, the one line from Pulp Fiction that always goes through my head is, and I think that this line I had never heard before, really, before Pulp Fiction. It's when after Bruce Willis is just about to escape, and who was the guy that was captive? Marcellus Wallace, was it?
Yeah.
That character. And Bruce Willis says to him, "You okay, man?" And he just goes, "I'm pretty fucking far from okay." And usually it's whenever you know somebody's okay, and some character asks them if they're okay, they always go, "Yeah, I'm fine, man." It's like no one ever says, "I'm pretty fucking far from okay." That line blew me away when I first heard it, and still stuck with me. Because once again, I forget what I was reading, where they had it was the same old scene where you see someone say, "Are you okay?" And they're like, "Yes, I'm okay," even though they're not okay. That was the first time I heard
that answer.
Yeah. Any character express that no, they weren't okay.
Right.
I'm pretty fucking far from okay.
Especially like an alpha male type character.
Yeah, exactly. Then, especially an alpha male character, you never hear them say they're not okay. So that was, and Bruce Willis still left anyway because he explained what he was going to do. Your ass is grass, and I'm the lawnmower. But that's the one line from Pulp Fiction. And then whenever I hear some character on TV or read say, "Are you okay?" that a line always goes through my head. Because no one ever says, "Oh, I'm not okay."
I'm just thinking about Saul's comment there. I said, you must have that lawnmower from Sling Blade that doesn't have any gas in it.
I have never seen Sling Blade.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
It won a lot of awards, didn't it?
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised. How movies get hyped and then you watch them and you're like, it was okay, but it's not what everybody claimed it was. That one was okay.
The TV show Lost included too much backstory, which I didn't find interesting after the
I've
first
never
season.
watched Lost.
I
There's
watched like 5 minutes of Lost, and I was lost.
was Lost done by J.J. Abrams?
Yes.
See, that alone makes me not want to watch it.
I watched all of Lost. I put that in bunny ears because a lot of times it was a background show to me. And to me, any individual episode of Lost was solidly done. But overall, disappointed because I knew they weren't going. I knew they didn't have the answer to that mystery. You can't handle the truth. I use that where you. That's
one of those things that bugged me about Jack Nicholson. Like he's just playing himself there,
right? But Lost, and opened up a whole new genre of shows, in comics to some extent. The genre's kind of faded now, but for a good 5 years it was strong. And I call the genre, I don't know what to call it, but the Lost style shows is the plot of the show is what's going on in this show. The mystery.
I can tell you the original version of that. That was The Prisoner.
Not nearly as much. The Prisoner, you knew what was going on. You just didn't know why.
Sometimes.
You knew he was a secret agent in Lost. You didn't know anything. These people crashed on an island. Why? Why were they there? What were they doing? What was done to them? You didn't know any of that. So the whole show was about figuring out what was going on in this show. And I just found that tedious. And like all of a sudden, lots of shows started doing that.
Right. Core cracks me up. Let me ask you a question. The only Brian K. Vaughan I know of that I've read is Paper Girls. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What else has he done besides Saga? What else has he done?
He's done Ex Machina. That one was pretty good.
Okay, I remember. I've never read it. Yeah.
Ex Machina is pretty good until the final 3 pages.
I don't remember them, so they didn't bother me that badly.
Yeah, it's the ending.
Okay.
It's an ending you don't see coming because you've never seen it coming.
So it's the opposite of an
I don't even remember the ending. Now I'm gonna have to go look at those 3 pages.
Okay.
Yeah, but read all the comic first, and then you'll find out why is it ending like this? No, whoops.
So don't get me started on J.J. Abrams, man. Yeah. See, Gore is so mad that we brought up Brian K. Vaughan that it just knocked Jared out.
Gore kicked me right out.
Yeah.
His hacking skills kicked me out.
Yeah.
That's it. Lost made JJ a star just so he could do a Star Trek and Star Wars. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think he did work. I think so did thank God that guy's gone. My grand tradition. The main problem with Lost was I knew they didn't have the answer to their mysteries, and they didn't.
So now I don't have to watch the show, and I know what happened.
No, if you were to watch any individual episode of Lost, you'd enjoy it.
Okay.
Because it's a well-made show.
So it's when you try to put it all together, it just doesn't
just
do anything.
Then
kind of like Twin Peaks in that regard, it just doesn't.
I never watched all the Twin Peaks, but I think Twin is a lot longer than Twin Peaks.
Okay.
But it's like at the end of Lost, they pulled the plug and everything went down the drain. I'm not joking. That's what happened.
All right.
There was a magical well or something. I remember that, and they had to pull a plug on it, and then everything went. It's like, what? None of it made sense.
You're wondering if it's all, a metaphor.
How does JJ make you feel, Scott? John Adams.
JJ's Star Wars work was okay. I despise his work on Star Trek. I do not like it at all. The actors were great. The actors were originally who I thought I was going to have a problem with. Actors were fine. But oh my God, the plot holes are big enough to drive Starfleet through like 10 times over.
They were all dead on Lost or something like that. Who knows? Everybody kept saying, are they in purgatory? All the
What other
shows like, no, they're not.
You're talking about that? What other shows were like Lost after it came out?
I can't even remember their names, but there was
I
a
just
whole. There was a
True.
plethora of them. I watched a few of them. I know.
Not only that, there were a bunch.
Speaking of mysteries, What's the Furthest Place from Here has been very good. These two guys have definitely upped their game since Three Kids Walk Into a Bank.
I'm noticing a trend with longer and longer titles.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of them. What's this? Tyler Boss and Matthew Rosenberg are doing this. And I like the art. I like the storytelling. The story so far, I guess you'd call it a mystery. It's these kids live in a world by themselves in this city.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know what happened to anyone or anything. They don't quite, since they've been here by themselves, since they were kids, they don't know much. They've had no adults to teach them anything.
Coloring.
They've kind of got these little gangs they live in.
Mm-hmm.
And these are both big, thick issues too. This is like a 40-pager for $3.99. And the first issue was like that too. Was like even bigger than this and was $5.99. Oh, there's a nice little drawing there. Let me just show you this double pager. And what's interesting too is they're giving themselves so much space that they even gave themselves like this spooky. They have to spend the night in the woods for whatever plot reasons. The artwork reminded me of, I guess I can see that.
Yeah.
But the issue is so big and they've given themselves so much space. Like they're spending some time in the woods. They never have spent time in the woods before because they've lived in this city, in this house the whole time. But for a reason that they gave not one, not two, but 3 double-page spreads of these strange creatures in the woods with them, waking them up. And it was just kind of talking about the way it makes you feel. It was just kind of like a beautiful moment. It's like no one does that. No one gives 3 double-page.
So it's like a cinematic approach
to a sort of moment of horror.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so well done. And I was like, wow, that's kind of something new. But like they can only do that because they decided to do this big 40-page issue. So.
Right.
And if you were putting out 20 pages, you wouldn't want to do 3 pages like that.
Right.
So I found that quite spectacular. And there's a good reason not to read digital, because those pages would not have the same impact.
No, they would not. You're absolutely right.
If they were digital and half the size or whatever. But I really found that, sort of in the craft part of comics to be really interesting. And I also wonder how would they have less impact in a trade that doesn't open up kind of like a comic does. These are the things I think about when I read comics.
I guess it would depend on how they formatted those pages.
Yeah, if
they did them full bleed, maybe.
Well, they're full bleed, but when you
in a trade, is what I'm getting.
A hardcover that opens flat, they'll have the same impact. But sometimes a trade doesn't open all the way, and you have to struggle with it.
Gotcha.
Because amazing is it can be such a delicate thing keeping a person's attention on a comic book. And if the physical comic book fights against you, that can take you out of the moment.
That's true.
It can. Oh, I have to show you this. Let me get my Comic Shop Weekly. This is because I got out the 5th issue to Odin's Eye. I did the production on it for Bad Idea. Right. It's a weekly comic. So getting out all 5 issues on time is going to be big. But this is do you guys ever get a chance to get Comic Shop Weekly? Probably Paolo
Nope.
doesn't.
No.
Because every year they do this comic shop news. The 31st annual Red K Awards.
Is Cliff Biggers still doing that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe so. I saw his name recently in the somewhere. Where is the? Let me just double check that. Where is the Indicia masthead? Whatever. Yeah, Cliff Biggers and Ward Batty.
Yeah,
Out of Marietta, Georgia.
Yeah, they used to do a lot of stuff for Comic Buyer's Guide back in the day too.
But they've got this one called, and they give like It's About Time, the It's About Time Award, which is about finally giving Kang the Conqueror an origin.
Hmm.
This one is where is it? The Truth in Advertising Award. Bad Idea Comics. The name Bad Idea may have been intended to be ironic, but has turned out to be all too true in too many ways. Many of you have never even seen a Bad Idea comic. That's part of the problem. The publisher chose to offer its comics to somewhere between 125 and 200 retailers, meaning that 90% of the shops can't carry the books at all. It chose not to use the primary distribution system for comics, requiring comic shops to order direct from Bad Idea, which is one of the reasons it gave for limiting the number of stores. It couldn't handle that many accounts, but then it used that primary distributor, Diamond, to get its books into the comic shops. It required stores to order at least as many of all subsequent issues that they ordered the first issue, even though some readers who try a first issue might want to continue with the series. Well, they don't buy them. I always find it funny. It's like they're forcing retailers to buy as many. It's like they don't have to buy any of them.
Right.
It offered a one shot to stores across the country, and then shipped 2 totally different books to retailers in different states. Although when they both had the same cover and title, I remember when that happened. That was just like I don't know what the idea behind that one was. Kind of fun. People.
I would think the nearest retailer to me that would carry that is probably a 3-hour drive from here.
Mm-hmm. Well, they said, why bother trying to get our books into so many retailers only carry Marvel and DC and refuse to deal with the indie. So they were like, well, why don't we only deal with retailers who want to deal with us?
Right.
Then it says they both had the same cover and title. Yeah, that was passive and aggressive. During a COVID crisis, they used a promo button to encourage customers to line up at stores in order to win. I don't know where they were lining up. The thing is, the books are good, and they don't need these retailer and reader unfriendly gimmicks to make them successful. The company has said it is ending after its final 5 titles are published. Let's hope that just means they're going to change names and start acting like a real comic book company. I don't know if they're going to change their name and act like a real comic book company. I just do the production on them. But there's some good comics out. They're very good comics. But yeah, I imagine if you can't get them and you want them, that's real annoying.
You could probably mail order them. But,
yeah, you can get them off the secondary market.
Right.
But like I said, their whole idea is why do they want to deal with comic shops that don't want to deal with them?
I mean, especially with distribution as wonky as it is now.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways to approach things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Wild West, again, in terms of distribution.
Yeah.
Maybe Cap City will come back.
Yeah, Marvel and DC both went with big corporate
and Heroes World.
But
they're doing
even without Marvel and DC stopping, because I don't think they will. There was a time when I thought they were going to stop, but right now I don't think so. But what would happen if the retailers started losing confidence on Marvel and DC to provide a product that they can sell?
That would be bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Marvel and DC are the best sellers in all these comic shops generally.
Mm-hmm.
Even though nowadays many of their comics don't sell enough to justify being on the stands.
but they sell more than other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because a
rather large margin in most cases.
I mean, what do you think your average indie comic sells? 5,000?
10 maybe.
That makes a lower selling Marvel comic at 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
A really big improvement.
Yeah, there's some outliers like Hellboy.
And Saga.
Mm-hmm.
So the most popular indie ones, I think, sell in the 50,000s, but that's a small percentage.
Right.
Yeah.
But then again, you've got stuff, like Raina Telgemeier, who's, going through Scholastic that's selling hundreds.
Not the comic shops.
Right.
That's another thing I'd really like to know nowadays is how many comics are sold outside comic shops for real, and counting everything. That's a comic
book. I would
book.
almost be willing to bet it's the majority of them.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong. But.
Right. And us being insular, because we're always dealing with the superheroes, it hurts the ability of the specialized market to find a bigger audience.
Right.
If I didn't get Love and Rockets this week. I didn't know it was supposed to be out, but it's on my pull list, so my shop could have been shorted. That's look at this funny writing to Paulo Marcus. That's from Marcus.
You would think it was Portuguese.
Looks good.
Yeah, so I will definitely be getting that new Love and Rockets, I imagine, whenever my shop gets it in. Which will be whenever they get it in. That's funny. I think I deleted every week I get what's coming in. I get an email from my comic shop telling me that my comics that are on my pull list that week.
Right.
And I think I somehow deleted it this week and never got to see it. So I don't even know if Love and Rockets was on. If Love and Rockets was on there,
probably up on their retailer's website, isn't it?
What was that?
Said that information is probably posted on your retailer's website.
I could probably look it up, but I know my comic shop will get it for me, so I don't really care.
Right.
Sometimes things get shorted, and they'll get them in a week or 2 weeks. I'm not going to sweat it that much. And Marvel is bringing What If back. What if, what's his name? Miles Morales was Captain America.
Yeah, but that's not a real what if. These are what ifs like, what if, what if pineapple pizza tasted good? That's what they're doing here.
It does.
Uh-oh. The Saga Continues award goes to Saga. Crinkling paper never sounds good on Bunny. And here is a little blurb about Department of Truth from someone who's obviously never read Department of Truth. Because it gets it's a conspiracy award. And it says, and it's praising Department of Truth. This is Department of Truth, so addictive. In this book's reality, all conspiracies are true. No, they're not. In the Department of Truth, it says, all conspiracies are true, and Cole Turner discovers there's an agency developed to keeping the public from knowing that. No, it doesn't. The book is actually it takes place in a world where if enough people believe in conspiracies, it rewrites history and they become true.
Right.
And so what this department does is gets people not to believe conspiracies. It's like, did you even read the book?
So Elvis wasn't fat after all?
There you go. He was skinny to the day he died.
But he didn't die. He's still alive, right?
That's right.
So
he's hanging out with Nixon somewhere, I bet.
And Bigfoot, right? And Jimmy Hoffa.
That's right. There was a Bigfoot book in here that was coming out. What was it? Wasn't it K Awards. It was in the other page. It was something else in Bigfoot. Occult Gumshoe. It's the Dresden Files. The Dresden Files, Bigfoot hardcover. It's coming out as a graphic novel, not even as a comic. I don't think I've ever read the Dresden Files. Isn't that a series of books?
It is, and I'm trying to think of who wrote it, and I can't think of
it. I think his name is here. It was a TV show too, right?
I actually ordered one of the books, not to read it, but just because Mike Mignola illustrated it.
Jim Butcher.
Yeah.
Creator and co-writer Jim Butcher.
My friend Jeff is a big fan of his work, but I've never read any of it.
Was there
one book?
Was there a TV show of that?
Dresden Files.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there was.
There was.
I think there was.
I think there was. I think I saw some of it. He's like an occult detective.
There's a TV show for everything. Yeah.
I can't remember. And the last book I got for the week, I finally picked up a Lady Mechanica book.
I like the cover.
Yeah, the covers are always nice. He's got nice art. It
reminds me a little bit of Juan Jimenez. I know that's not the artist, but
it's Benitez. Joe Benitez, who's been around for a while. He's been around for a long while.
Yeah, I was gonna say that looked like a Top Cow comic.
Yeah, and he's there's even a pull-out pinup.
Yeah, definitely looks like a Top Cow comic.
One on that side, and there's another on this side. And what's fun? I think I read the Free Comic Book Day one of the, but it always has such nice covers. Very steampunk. She's a half mechanical woman or something, and it takes place like in the 19th century sometime. I forget when.
It does pretty much all steampunk.
But I've always meant to pick, and it's funny, I couldn't remember if I put this on my pull list or not, but it was in my pile this week. I'm like, oh, good, I did put that on my pull list. Now I have no idea if I put only this issue on my pull list or all 4 issues. Now, sometimes I put the first issue of something on, and then if I like it, I add the rest of the series, because usually final order cutoff is like the Monday after the Wednesday it comes out. So there's time to... But there's some nice steampunk drawings.
Mm-hmm. What color is that?
This is...
The colorist.
Beth Sotelo.
It's no name I'm familiar with at all.
Right. I was going to ask if Benitez was working with J.D. Smith again, because J.D. Smith was the guy that colored the Darkness and Witchblade back in the late 90s.
Wow. Well, is he a Witchblade guy?
And Witchblade guy?
He was top cow, right? Benitez?
Yeah.
Draw Witchblade?
Benitez took over the Darkness, I think.
Oh, the Darkness.
From when Mark Silvestri stopped, Benitez took over the Darkness.
Yeah, because there's the foreign license got to equal at least double the U.S. market numbers for successful titles. I would hope so. I don't.
Well, double zero is still zero.
they don't make editorial decisions based on the success of the licensed titles in foreign markets. They never do.
That's the movies.
Mm-hmm. No, for the movies they do. For the comics, they never do, and that's the problem.
No.
I wonder if the Bond comics sell well outside the UK and England and the United States.
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
It just dawned on me. You talk about licenses.
The Warren Ellis omnibus was terrific of the Bond comics. I took that out of the library this year.
Yeah, pretty much all the reviews I've seen of Bond comics have usually said they're pretty decent.
Yeah, but that one, that's one I'd actually buy, even though I took it out of the. Well, I think I read it digitally, right? Yeah, out of the library. And I really should learn that artist's name because it's his omnibus too. He did all the drawing. He was really good.
Gotcha.
But he's somebody I hadn't heard of. Mm-hmm. Let's look at one more George Perez. Let's see what we got. Random George Perez stuff.
Oh, God.
Infinity Gauntlet 2, Brave and the Bold 4, Hulk Future Imperfect 2. I didn't want to tempt you with Infinity Gauntlet number 1, so I picked number 2.
Ugh, that's tough.
I'm going to slab Future Imperfect, read Infinity Gauntlet, and drip Supergirl Lobo.
That's the one I have right over here. Supergirl Lobo.
Exact opposites again, Paul.
I'm definitely ripping Infinity Gauntlet. No doubt about that.
You're definitely what?
Ripping Infinity Gauntlet. No doubt about that.
Infinity Gauntlet is still readable. It's actually less impressive than anything Starlin had done before.
Yes,
but it's still readable. The sequels were made for money grabbing.
Right, but the worst thing about Infinity Gauntlet is George Perez leaving it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would have to say to me, it's second to George Perez leaving the Korvac saga. But to a lot of people, it's first. If you're a generation younger than me, you're more of an Infinity Gauntlet fan than I am. Matter of fact, I never read Infinity Gauntlet, I don't think, until they put it out in some of those dollar editions. Now I've got like 4 of the 6 issues in like facsimiles or dollar editions.
I remember buying that off the rack when it came out, but it just never was a big thing to me.
That was one where the trade paperback rose up in price.
Right.
Because for years it was out of print.
On these, I'm going to have to read Supergirl versus Lobo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to slab Infinity Gauntlet, and I'm going to rip up the Future Imperfect because I really don't like that cover.
It's not a good cover.
Odd to me.
But the book itself is good.
No. It's like, why is he just like posed in midair over a cityscape?
I'm going to rip the Infinity Gauntlet, read Supergirl, and slab the Hulk. I think that's what I'm going to do. Let's see. I think I have one more George Perez, so I may as well do that. George Perez, Avengers.
Oh, gosh. Flip a coin. Flip a coin. Slab is like the cover do I like the best, and then that's that. The other two, I really don't have an opinion.
His first run, his kind of second run, and his way late third run.
I'm going to read Heroes Return 13, slab 170, and rip 198.
I don't even know what. Oh, yeah.
And I suppose that people would think that the Red Ronin cover is impressive, but I remember one chapter of that story was drawn by Carmine Infantino.
Oof, that'll ruin any story, won't it?
Yeah, Perez cover.
Yeah, that's really hateful.
Perez cover Infantino interior art, and I remember that cover to 170 because they also used it in the Brazilian comic, and I couldn't buy that comic when it came out, and it bugged me for years until I was finally able to buy it. I loved that cover; it was the most magnetic cover I had ever seen, because seeing the Avengers fight amongst themselves like that, which is funny because it's like a one-page scene in the comic, but. But it's a great form of comic book marketing, traditional comic book marketing.
I think I'm going to slab 170. Ooh, do I want to? Which one? Slab 170. I don't want to read 198, so I'll rip that one and read 13. That's my order. I remember liking these Busiek Perez Avengers. That was good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to slab 198 because I like the cover the best. That's just me.
Okay. He likes
I
the
don't know
John.
jack about any of the stories. I'm going to read 170 and we'll rip up at 13 because it's cover I like the least. What's up with that background? It's white in the middle and purple on the edges.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a little weird. That is a little weird. That must be the beginning of the computer age. They just said, give us a gradient back there.
Maybe.
I'm guessing.
So they're just standing in the middle of what space with the purple in the background? I don't know. Do.
That's a strange one.
And AFPC shows up right towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying hello to the bots too. We don't usually have bots here. We usually get enough people to have bots, but tonight's still different.
We're famous now, I guess.
It's probably because I said that hunter-gatherer thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty riled up.
No. They just wanted to know if you were interested in meeting singles in our area.
Because we were singing the spam song earlier. That's what.
Spam. There you go. Once it's in your head,
it's hard to get out.
It's there.
Spam, again spam.
Cheeseburger, hamburger, Pepsi, no Coke.
You know, they actually based that on a real...
real Chicago eater.
Yeah. I saw a little documentary that was talking about burger places in Chicago, and they went there and filmed all that.
Do you know that one, Paolo, from Saturday Night Live?
No.
A famous skit from probably not as famous now since it was famous in the late 70s.
Right.
Look up the hamburger cheeseburger sketch.
His Belushi and Aykroyd. Yeah.
Hey, that's old. No, the thing is, while I was growing up, we had no idea what Saturday Night Live was, unless we tried to follow the entertainment news. So it was several years later that I found out that the Ghostbusters had come from there, Eddie Murphy had come from there, and even who John Belushi was, because I'm more familiar with Jim Belushi than with John Belushi. The Blues Brothers was not a regular repeat on TV.
My mind just exploded.
Here's a question. Right now, at this day and time, are like John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd equivalent in time to like Laurel and Hardy were back in 1979 when they got big? I don't.
I would have to say no because the audience was so much bigger for.
No. I just mean in time. Like Aykroyd and Belushi now are so old timey that they're equivalent
to modern audience.
To modern audiences, they're so old timey. They're like Abbott and Costello or Stan and Ollie.
Well, maybe because you could still show both Aykroyd and Belushi and Abbott and Costello to a modern audience, and they get it.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much with Laurel and Hardy.
Mm-hmm. Time keeps moving forward. All right, we're gonna have to sign off for the night. Paolo needs some sleep.
Probably. Tomorrow I'm going to come to Comic-Con to interview Mike Grell to host the panel, but it will have to be remote because he didn't come to Portugal after all.
Ah, that's too bad.
Yeah, the Transformer is afraid of the Transformer variant.
The Transformer variant.
Which one? Optimus Prime?
Omicron Prime. Later. Cheers. All right, so you guys out there all have a good night. And we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Valley ho. Did Mike Grell come? Nope, he's staying over there. He did not get to interview him.
You can't ask like that. Did Michael Grell come?
All right, the Comic Crack. They'll be back on Damien's channel this week on Sunday afternoons, usually around 2 or 3. Bye bye. All right, catch you guys later. Have a good.